holding themselves.
Matt and Andy, I just wanted to make sure you all know on Thursday, have you heard of the Dance Dance Revolution event?
I saw the thing,
It's on Friday, or it's on Thursday at Freight, which is a big free party, with food and stuff. And there are local artists, like 15 or so. BAG has rented out all the cabins at Freight, so there's gonna be a party in the main depot, and then each one of the cabins has like an art installation for the community in it,
Okay.
on all sorts,
Thursday night.
Thursday night, yeah. Just wanted to make sure you knew about it.
And the Revolution is the name, is it a band?
Dance Dance Revolution, it's like,
The game or something?
you know that
Yeah.
90s, yeah, that 90s arcade game?
Hmm.
Anyway, the point is that like, the art is based on like the revolution, like food, like, not food, on like community needs. So, food access, childcare, what is the artist within you, etc. So, I think 12 different art installations in this lumberyard.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's promotional material, can you just
Yeah,
drop an
sure.
email link to any of that, so I can look at it with Leslie and
Totally.
see? It is, we good?
Yes.
9:33, January 28th, Tuesday, we are opening, calling to order this work session of the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Where is everybody?
This is
Yeah,
us.
Kelly.
More people
Okay.
should care about wastewater and sanitation.
Yes.
They should, but we're not an exciting,
I have had
As you can be.
people approach me and ask about how do they get involved with this?
Mhm.
Just if that,
involved in what way?
helping in any way they can. They were like, I will work for free.
Really?
So, yes, I have a number I would like to pass on to you.
Please.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I do have one small request before we get started, and that is that we don't engage with the chat, at least during our training. Or set up maybe a special meeting for people that have special interests, because I just think that this is for our training, it's not really a back and forth, and I know that's not what we ran on. We ran on more of an open door policy, but I just don't want it to, like Fiedler used to say, it's not a back and forth. Like now we're the judges. Some of these things are gonna be coming up in front of us in a quasi judicial process, and I just think it's getting kind of cloudy. So, and that would be up to you, Andy, so you can make the decision. That's my humble request
Yep.
this morning.
Absolutely, I agree, and I have reached out to some of our most engaged community members to follow up with them on open time slots. I have to meet directly face to face, looking at next week, with some of our more active community members to, hopefully answer more of these questions at a time where we have time to really take a deeper dive into these concerns.
Well,
So-
the thing is, we can't, some of these things we can't really answer the questions because we don't know.
Mhm.
And now that we're gonna be adjudicating some of these processes, anything that we answer, if it's wrong, could jeopardize the process in the long term, could lead to possible recusal of one of us if we end up talking or saying too much or saying something that we don't know. And so I would say if people want to have a work session regarding their favorite issue, that come in and now it's gonna have to be with all three of us. And I know that's not what we ran on, but even if someone did wanna come to the office regarding an upcoming issue, I think we would just be able to sit there and listen, unfortunately. Like we can't engage back and forth on issues that are gonna come before us. It'd be like a judge who had a friend who's son had DUI and was gonna come in front of the judge his friend said, hey, can we have lunch? I wanna talk to you about my son's DUI.
Right.
That wouldn't be fair to the, so something I've been thinking about last night.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's
You
it.
were thinking last night. I think we're gonna straddle a balance of, like, these work sessions are really, yeah, like you said, they're just for us to learn as much as we can. I think future work sessions, we'll be able to take it on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
When we're less, just absolutely swamped with information and unable to provide any kind of engagement. And I think it's definitely still in our role, and I would like to still engage with the community and be able to hear their concerns, and if they have questions, take those questions and be able to bring those to the right people, so if people have concerns and questions, I wanna hear them, I wanna talk to them, I wanna engage with them. I can't answer all the questions, but they do deserve time in the chair in front of any of us individually, or, so I think as long as we're staying within boundaries of like decision making and, offering answers that aren't like within our realm of knowledge, then I think I'm still open to that, and I think, and I also have respect with, with what you're saying as far as in the right time and place. So, I'll follow up with Chris and make sure that nothing that I'm hoping on doing, steps afoul of any of the rules that you're bringing up, because that's a really good point, we do have to be careful, but, it's still, I feel like it's my duty, and I would hope you guys would agree that we do need to step up the engagement with the community in any way that we are allowed to, so.
I agree.
with that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I would just offer the suggestion of Commissioner Bullock's, comment about, you're not always gonna know in advance, sometimes it's just gonna show up at the door. And in most instances, my recommendation would be, yes, you're there to engage with them to receive information, their comments, questions, and concerns. But in regards to the questions, perhaps collect that information and then, as you mentioned, refer it to others or vet it afterwards, because sometimes you might not have all the information you need in order to fully answer. And as Commissioner Bullock pointed out, that sometimes if you feel compelled to give an answer, it can come back to haunt you in terms of not having the information. And it looks even worse if you're backtracking later because you gave an answer that wasn't fully informed, than if you say to the person in front of you, those are really great questions, I'm going to, collect additional information for you, I will get back with you with an answer to them. And I think that's what they really wanna see, is that you are hearing them and that you're willing to follow up and get the answers to their questions.
That's exactly what I hope to achieve with that, I'm new, I don't know, there's so much information we've been trying to absorb in the last, week and a half here.
And some people might not be comfortable coming in here and putting themselves out there in front of all of us, and so
For sure.
that's a good point, like if someone knows us personally and wants to come in and ask us personally in a more comfortable or intimate situation, then I can totally understand that and I'd encourage that too, but I just wanna be really cautious that we don't get ourselves into trouble where we would have to, we'd have a conflict of interest because of what we said. So that's all.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, if we lose our ability to represent the people just by saying the wrong things.
So like as the action then, can we see what questions are being asked in the chat? And then determine who has the answer so that they can follow up with whomever is asking the question?
I would like to suggest that we don't address the chat during this week, our time of learning and stuff,
Okay.
and that we do it in another way.
Okay.
Because to me, this is our time to learn, because we don't know anything, we probably know a lot less than the people in the chat, so that would be my preference, it's not my choice, I guess the decision is up to Andy, but I think they should be answered at a later date, or or asked in a more formal way. I mean, that's my thought.
Yeah, let's just close chats out with that message of like, hey, we're gonna take these questions in and we will get back to you, can you leave a contact? So then that way we're not cutting people off, but we aren't adding, all of these meetings have run over by at least 20%, if not longer, every single one we've had, cause we keep asking so many questions, which is a good thing. But if we start, trying to be Swiss Army knives with these meetings, right now it's gonna, and it's everybody from staff to, every department in the county is gonna be running behind, just because we're trying to do everything at once, and we're only human, we're only able to accomplish so much in each meeting, so if we can just acknowledge the questions and follow up on them later, maybe like a comment in the chats that, that you could add, Tim, while we're going through our regular agenda, that would be good, and then we can figure it out.
And we'll readdress it for like future work sessions.
Yeah, plan
Yeah.
a work session. If someone has a major issue that they really want,
Mhm.
we could have an evening work session and have all the opponents and proponents and all their evidence come in and talk to us as a team.
Right.
And then again, reach out individually, but we can't really, unfortunately, when we got into this, we thought we were gonna be able to engage with people, but when we're making extrajudicial decisions, there's rules that I wasn't aware of.
Mhm.
And the worst thing that could happen is that some of us breaks the rule and has to recuse ourselves, because we may be on the same page, we may agree with some of these sentiments,
The community could lose an ally.
and then they
Totally.
lose an ally or lose someone who could help direct the project, so.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like the idea of us being able to take questions and concerns of the community, direct them to the right situations, and then get back. Like, I'm happy doing some extra legwork to facilitate a better relationship between the community and the Board of County Commissioners. You know,
Yeah, staff is here to be able to provide those in-depth answers, over various areas, and then, like we've talked about before, ensuring that all three of you, either individually or collective in a work session, gets that same information at the same time, cause you're gonna do it. I assume you all shop at Safeway. I'm not hearing from it. Come up and let me know their opinion or have lots of questions, but it's our duty to respond,
yeah,
provide the answers.
Yeah,
that's
For
right.
an outlet for people to learn with us.
Yeah.
Great, okay. Oh, I got the wrong day on here.
Sorry about
Josh?
that,
Yeah.
Ryan. Josh, we're delaying you.
Yeah,
Go for it.
So I'm Joshua Miller, I'm the district manager for the Leadville Sanitation District. Much like yourselves, I am still very new to my position. So I think now I'm 9 months into this role. And it's, I'm still drinking from a fire hose, that's for sure. There's a lot of things that were going on, a lot of big projects, a lot of construction that was already at the 100-yard line when I walked into the door. And so it's been exciting, but there's a lot happening. I'm sure y'all saw the construction this year going on downtown. And a lot of people didn't know that this is state mandated. So we have been required to replace a certain number of troubled areas of pipe due to infiltration and inflow, which is affecting our hydraulic capacity and our process control at the wastewater treatment plant.
well,
So,
infiltration and inflow, can you elaborate on that?
so when you have old clay pipe, like Leadville does, most of it is vitrified clay. Over time, it moves, it cracks, breaks, and it allows groundwater to seep in. And so, in an ideal scenario, you have none, It allows us to control the bug life at the plant that helps with the solids processing. It also,
Is that like bug life, is that like enzyme breakdown or
it's
something?
the biological component of the process that we control. And so when you have too much water, you're changing your concentrations of solids, and so it becomes temperamental, hard to control. Too much water in our system can lead to lines flooding, manholes overflowing in areas at the wastewater treatment plant, overworking pumps. We have a process that's called digestion, and so that's one of the final processes. And ideally, you want to have as high of a solids content as possible, but in those peak flow times of the year, primarily spring, when we have the snow melt, get a lot of groundwater, our system goes from 350,000 gallons a day to 1.5 million gallons a day, which is above what we're even rated for. And so, hopefully this construction that we're doing now will give us a good idea of what to expect when we start to address other areas. This is not the only place that we're gonna be. By my calculations last night, there's just over 200,000 linear feet of pipe in Leadville. And this represents about 2,000 of it that was done this year. So
Wow.
the green is next year, which is our phase 2. Luckily, phase 2 is primarily alleyways, so it's not gonna have as big of an impact on people trying to drive around town. This year was difficult. There is the potential for the upper right portion, Poplar Street and alley to Hemlock. We're still working on, I guess, some discussions about the park area and easements. So we'll probably push that to a later date. But everything else that's in green, we should be able to address this year.
That park is Kitty Corral.
Yeah,
There's some fascinating Leadville easements and things that were done long ago that Josh doesn't have an easement.
No, we do not.
So,
We also have a section of pipe there that goes directly under someone's house. So that's gonna be an interesting one.
I'm gonna need a those two.
Yeah.
You're gonna need a big crane.
I
yeah,
think we're probably gonna abandon that
A lot of
section.
balloons.
That's our hope.
Reroute,
Reroute,
okay.
get down into the street, and just go around like we should have years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so all that construction all summer long that everyone was not exactly thrilled about, it's just the red.
Correct.
I do see, yeah, this does, I mean, it's all alleys, isn't it? What about this section?
The elbow.
Yeah, the elbow, that's
That's-
directly under,
That's 6th Street
is that the alley behind the buildings right there?
that you're in right now.
There's our building.
Yeah,
That's the courthouse.
So in the, okay,
Comes up the alley, then it cuts through the Altitudes gym building.
yeah, see it, okay, then we're going right over to Spencer's office there.
So you have to dig all
The
these
old
up,
office.
there's no way to line,
slip lining
Slip
is
line?
something that places have experimented with. It's not a long-term solution.
I see.
And so, with the condition of some of this pipe, probably wouldn't even be
Yeah.
effective in large sections.
What's the diameter of these pipes we're replacing?
6 and 8 inch, most of them.
Wow.
It seems really small.
It is. So our minimum now size that we allow anywhere is 8 inch.
Okay.
And, you know, you can actually have quite a bit of flow through an 8 inch pipe. But, there's sections of Harrison that still have 6 inch, and they're pushing it right now.
Yeah,
So at some point, there's definitely gonna be a lot of work on Harrison, but it looks nice, it's paved right now, things are for the most part working, so we're gonna leave that alone.
okay.
We do have a point repair that's gonna happen in the next, hopefully 3 weeks, right in front of the rock cut. We had a crew up here cameraing, for a private line extension and asked them to look into a section of Harrison where we kept getting our cheddar stuck, and it turns out there's a collapse right there, so. we've been working with CDOT and our engineers to get a crew up here.
You guys ever break into any of the secret tunnels that used to connect all the?
I have not, and I hope we never do.
Okay.
Do not know what's down there.
You, sorry,
Okay.
so that's the same question to you, Greg. So if you are repairing something, you know, and it might impact a county road, what does that collaboration look like, or those conversations?
Road and bridge.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's our big counterpart there. So right now we do also have a line that we're repairing on Toledo. Apparently a fiber line was drilled through the sewer main line and it's leaching into a private lot. So we've got ground fall for that going right now. Our goal is to hopefully by Thursday be digging, and it should be a pretty quick fix. But
Where's Toledo?
it's on the east side.
Brain fart on this.
Chicken
Very-
Bone.
Bunch of,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I thought.
So
Fun.
hopefully this week we'll have this resolved.
And that's like the responsibility of the operators putting in the fiber line if they do something like that and throw you guys a wrench, or is it like
It is
split?
yeah, it's their responsibility to pay for the repair, but of course, we're not, you know, penny pinching, we're also providing what we can, and Parkville actually has helped us and allowed Vero's crew to use their ground ball machine. Turns out those are very difficult to find this time of year.
Who has the machine?
Parkville Water does.
Thanks, Greg.
So, there will be some remediation that'll have to happen, because this has been leaching for a few months. It just, now that the ground is frozen, it made its way to the surface, it's got nowhere else to flow. So, we'll be working with the county to make sure we coordinate on, any remediation that has to happen in roadways. I think for right now, it's just gonna be topical, removing affected snow that's compacted in the roadway and just hauling it away to our facility. And then the private property will likely have to wait till spring, till their lot melts. And they'll probably do some topsoil removal and replacement.
Wow.
It's a lot for drilling the wrong hole.
Mhm.
And is the fiber optic company, are they responsible and
They're
cooperating?
they're being very cooperative right now,
Good.
so that's good. So we'll reroute that. As far as that construction, you know, we're looking at about $4.5 million so far just for this little bit of pipe that we're replacing, and the district's funding 3.5 million of it out of our reserves, which is for the most part depleting it. I think we'll have about $500,000 left in our
Wow.
reserves.
Wow.
We were fortunate enough to get $1 million from DOLA, so that has helped. So our future projects are gonna be grant dependent. The goal's gonna be, keep knocking at the door for DOLA and see if we can continue to get more funding. It seems like they are prepared to give us around 3, as long as funds are available.
3 million for future projects?
No, around 3.
Oh, round 3,
So
not around 3.
hopefully another million.
Okay.
And this is gonna be most likely a dollar for dollar match, so we'll have to come up with $1 million to be able to utilize all of it.
How big is the gap between what you're mandated to do, like you said, this was a state or federal mandate? What the state is mandating you to do and what you have the capital to accomplish? Like looking ahead, like, you know, 26, 27.
This meets the requirement,
Okay,
and this must be completed by the end of 2025.
okay. Think y'all pull it up?
How did you select what needed repairs and what didn't?
So we have an engineering firm, JVA, that has done that, so they camera and inspect a lot of pipe, and they find the areas that have the biggest cracks, breaks, old manholes. Turns out old manholes are another really significant source of I&I. So Leadville still has brick and mortar ones that were put in 100 years ago, probably. And in the springtime, it's like little waterfalls inside of them. So, you know, finding these and replacing these is huge.
Yeah. Is it, Schedule 40 PVC?
What we use now is SDR 35, for piping, but manholes are concrete.
Yeah.
Cast forms that are dropped in. So the old pipe they're replacing is vitrified clay, most of it. I have seen one section of asbestos. Surprisingly, that stuff held up really well over the years.
Yeah.
This is the best, this stuff.
It's still asbestos. So that's kind of where we are with the collection system improvements. The next slide shows, so the left picture is what we were able to camera inspect and clean this year. Some of that fell into some areas that were going into construction this year, so we just wanted to get eyes on them again and a few extra blocks around them. West Park, it was logical for us to start there. We know that there's been high flow reports from that area, from a flow study that was done a few years ago. So we wanted to put eyes on it and see what's going on. And from what we found so far, and granted this is still gonna go through engineering review, but it looks like a lot of leaking services. There's broken pipe on private property that's just gushing water in the spring. There's old manholes, and there's a few sections in there that need immediate replacement.
That would logically happen before fixing any of the roads in West Park as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And all that moves down into, where that little corner where Glenda, where the Duns lived, and then down into Lodestone, and after that, I don't know what happens, where it runs after that, but I know basically you drop some trash in West Park, it's gonna end up in the springtime, it's gonna end up on the sides of the roads all the way down in Lodestone over there, I feel like.
Yeah, all that flow goes to the line that leads kind of by the cemetery, and then down towards McWethy, and then it comes down McWethy. So by fixing this issue, we actually, everything that's gone into the rail yard is new. So the hope is that if we can address what's in West Park, we have one good large chunk of section we know is okay.
Okay.
And we also know there's a lot of desire and demand for people to be able to tie into this section pipe. So there's a developer, Gateway Village, that wants to put stuff in between 24 and 91. There's also the affordable housing that is being looked at by the county right there in the ballpark. And so for us to be able to accept anything more, we need to address what's in orange and get those areas repaired.
It's a lot.
Gateway is just
Not everything is
past the top of this map,
It's just
right?
Yeah, so kind of where 91 and 24 come together.
Just
Yeah,
past the
There,
house.
there's what's the ski shop?
it's on the other side of the road,
Yeah,
isn't it?
so it's even before that,
Okay.
kind of behind that area. I don't know how
Oh,
best to
behind,
describe
it's
that.
on the north side of 24, it's not by the
Look, Andy, right here.
Correct.
the edge of the backcountry.
See these two? This is the 91-24 junction,
Mhm.
goes over here.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
there's the pump house, it's over here.
And-
Mountain Valley Estates is right here.
How does that tie in? So,
It
How does that
would
tie
in the
in?
future.
Seems like it's downhill.
right?
It is. So the district has been really against lift stations
Yeah,
in the past because of our capacity issues and because of maintenance concerns.
because it pumps so much at once.
Well, they tend to be problematic,
Mm.
and
Yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces.
it's a lot of moving pieces. It creates if the developer leaves and then they pass this on and they want the district to accept the responsibility, it then adds something for us to have to manage. It's more pumps, more panels, more control systems, more staff, more travel. And so it's a lot to wanna agree to.
But the Gateway Village will need a lift station?
They will need a lift station. They do have a second option that they are looking at, which is build their own wastewater treatment plant. In my opinion, it would be better that we find a way to be able to accept the flow and not have multiple wastewater treatment plants in town.
Where the Village of Eastport's on its own wastewater treatment, isn't it?
All three of them are.
All three.
Communities are.
Okay.
And our licensed day operator oversees, I think, 2 of them. I don't know if John Volk sees all of them, but they're very basic facilities. They haul some pretty nasty stuff and they don't process to the level that we do. So ideally, it would be better, being that this all feeds into the Arkansas, that we kind of try to control and do the best we can with these facilities. So the more you have, the more risk there is. And we also would compete for where we discharge. There could be issues where, if testing fails downstream, who did what, you know? It'd be best to avoid that if we could.
Can you talk a little bit about the relation between like where the district's responsibility ends and the property owners starts?
Yes, so the district owns all the main lines. Everything in blue is district owned. All those lines are either in alleyways or in the public roadway. Once you tee off of it, you go to a residence with a 4-inch line, that becomes the responsibility of the owner. So we don't own or maintain any of those lines. With West Park, as we've seen, we think there's issues with those lines, so it's gonna become probably problematic and difficult to explain to homeowners when we find the problem that it's, you know, this is on your property and unfortunately this is gonna be something you're gonna have to foot the bill for. There definitely needs to be some more discussion about what we need to do to plan in the future to help some of these homeowners, because not everyone can afford a $10,000 or $20,000 repair bill.
Most people can't,
Most.
yeah.
The vast majority.
So C4 did help us with one house in the construction project that needed a new line run. They helped out with about half the cost for the homeowner. But this was.
A drop in the bucket.
Yeah, that's a drop in the bucket. One of the homeowners that needed a replacement right next door luckily was selling the house and they did have the funds, so they were able to take care of it. But we have another issue of where we're finding multiple houses tied into the same lines. And it, you know, my thought is back in the day, people thought it was a great idea, it's an easy way to save money. Hey, let's all trench together and then just run one out to the street, you know, it'll save us a couple bucks. Well, that's no longer acceptable. And so as we find these in these construction projects, that's gonna force people to then separate their lines. I think last year we had a total of 4 properties get broken apart. We found 2 others that were tied together, and that's just from the work we were doing.
When we talk about infrastructure, like this is a huge problem in our community. And like the deferred maintenance is like homeowner deferred maintenance that none of us know about because it's all underground and it's not a problem until it's a problem. But you all can see that like this is an infrastructure nightmare coming down the track, not only for Leadville Sanitation or Parkville Water, but for each individual homeowner as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there concerns about, I mean, obviously, we're leaking all over the place, you know, from residential or, you know, on your side as well. While we have you in the room, how does that affect water quality? Is there any places where that can enter through?
No, 'cause we keep positive pressure on all of our lines.
Okay.
It does cause corrosion on like the old galvanized service lines in the ground.
Okay,
It causes them to wear out and corrode faster than they would normally.
okay. But, you know, again, then we kinda have that concern of this is like an invisible problem for the community, like, you don't you know, when we get spring melt off or, you know, it's warm enough out and there's water running down the streets and the kids are playing in water on the sides of the streets.
It's poop water.
It's good water.
No, not
Don't play
necessarily.
in that.
That's why we do our best never to shut a main off.
Yeah,
So nothing can infiltrate our mains,
okay,
even main breaks we fix under pressure.
yeah,
What you see on the surface is fine. It's for the most part.
okay,
Most of what's leaching is, you know, 8 feet and below the surface.
Going
and
down.
It's going down.
okay,
There are probably a few areas where there could be some risk of, you know, high water tables and maybe some mixing and it coming out to the surface, but that's minimal.
okay. Okay, good, thanks for clarifying that, cause,
Those sewer lines in West Park, they're all on the street
Yes,
and they're all below your water line? Or near it?
Most of them are above our water lines, for the most part.
All your water lines and taps, are you having the same issues as these?
Well, West Park is 65 years old, it's all copper lines.
Oh.
And it's gonna be a headache in the future. But for now, it's the galvanized service lines. First to be at the tap.
But the copper will break down eventually?
Eventually, yeah. They say the lifespan of a galvanized line is 50 years old. We have galvanized lines that are over 100 years old, so in service.
these are all too far apart for there to be any collaborative, hey, we're gonna replace these, you guys wanna replace these while we're in there, or no
Yeah.
lines are in close enough proximity to,
It's
Tackle.
it's hard to coordinate and put projects together, like his mandate. We're gonna be doing the top 4 blocks on East Sixth, and then across St. Patrick's Avenue over to 7th Street this summer. That's gonna be a big project.
What is St. Patrick's Avenue?
You know where Slow Bob lives?
Mm-hmm.
That's that street,
Oh, okay.
Slow Bob Street,
Got it.
very, very top across the street
Mm-hmm.
between 6th and 7th.
Mm-hmm.
and I still have to look into it for y'all's project, but it sounds like there may be one small section that we have that's in the street up there. So I'm gonna look to see if we can, while we have the crews budget to potentially maybe get in there and do that one as
Yeah.
well. But I also don't know the condition of that one, so we'll take a look.
And we're also using JVA
Oh, you are?
design on that, yeah.
Good.
Josh, what is this? Right here, is it the railroad? It comes over to the, I'm assuming, I'm remembering the plant's right here, right?
Yes.
Or the plant.
That
What is
is,
that?
that's it's a main line.
Is that a road though? Is it, what is that?
I don't think it actually is a county road, it goes behind the mine, over there, CJK milling operation,
Yeah.
and then,
It's just like cutting through the forest?
for the most part, I think it is in some sections, I'm not sure if that's an active road or you
is that over by,
I don't think
Patty
it's
and
real,
Brian?
it's just a,
Yeah.
it's just a utility easement, I think.
You can see on the map that there's been clear cutting in some of it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's starting to overgrow by now, probably.
That's so interesting. Okay.
That's one I haven't had any problems with in 9 months.
Well, let's go. I love that for you.
Walk that.
yeah, you just jinxed yourself.
Yeah, no, we did have a surveyor though, a survey, I think it was year before last.
Josh was in here yesterday and, one thing I'd like to pursue is getting some sewer up to the airport.
Yeah.
He said he had a $3 million proposal, who knows how long ago that was, but, just so you're aware, and there's Parkville water up there?
There is,
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I did work for the airport for a little while, so I've seen those plans.
Kennels,
Yeah.
Kennels and the FAA and CDOT
Okay.
help fund that.
Yeah, seems like, sewer would help with the growth up there that
It would.
some people would
Think
like
that-
to see.
I think bathrooms and hangars is limited, and if I recall correctly, the amount of space for septic is an issue.
Yeah.
So they can't really continue to grow on septic.
I just thought I'd bring that up, put it on your radar, it's something that's come up that I'd like to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
And the sewer line's obviously on the other side of the highway there,
It is,
so you have to go under the highway.
yes.
I mean, obviously you have to go under, but do you auger it? Is there a tunneling device or? I'm sure that's probably the hardest part of the job is getting approval from CDOT.
It's just hard,
Yeah, for that one, I don't know.
cause they're gonna be boring underneath 91 for the Leadville mine drainage tunnel to connect to our line.
Yeah.
That's in the works. It's gonna happen this summer.
Say that again, Greg, I didn't
The
follow.
Leadville mine drainage tunnel,
Yeah,
they're gonna connect to our system, they're not connected to our system.
where the proposed live?
A little bit south of that,
Okay.
where the turnoff to that village trailer court is.
For more, supply?
To have just domestic water in their plant and also to have fire protection.
Oh, okay.
And that'll give some fire hydrants that'll be usable by the trailer court there if
Okay.
needed. The trailer court won't connect to it,
Hmm,
just the treatment plant.
just the treatment plant, okay.
And they
I'd
just
like to
visited.
get a tour of that, Greg.
I can set it up anytime.
Okay.
And Mabel and Claire have been working on that, I think what you know, so.
Yeah.
For that, cause are they done with that new building?
No.
Not yet, okay,
It's
cause there was,
they're gonna start demo as soon as spring gets here on the old.
okay, cause that was a $50 million investment from the federal government to upgrade and
130.
130, okay,
Yeah,
Wow.
What?
hopefully it doesn't disappear.
Yeah, you got the money in hand?
Wow.
It's been set aside, but that's not a guarantee either.
right,
Oh,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Josh, anything else you wanna share with us?
There it is.
Keep going.
Please
Yeah.
stop.
we tend to get people sidetracked here.
Yeah, we're good at that, sorry.
So this is the wastewater treatment plant, as it sat, I believe, about a year ago. So we have begun construction on a complete rehabilitation of the facility. This facility, for the most part, has not been maintained well, and it's not been upgraded since 1987. It's the last set of engineering drawings I saw. We have pumps that are being held together with duct tape. And that's not an exaggeration.
Welcome to my world.
Oh, yes. What?
Just the amount of like alarming things we learn sitting in this chair, it just doesn't end.
It's kind of universal nationwide, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All these
So,
infrastructure
You can
conversations.
kind of see what looks like a brown soupy pool.
I love it.
That's one of the aeration basins. As far as I can tell, the other one above it has not been in operation for 10 or 15 years probably. It's got heaped panels, cracked panels, which would have leaked into the ground. And so part of this construction is we're repairing that basin, lining it. We're gonna pump everything across from the full one to that one when it's completely rehabbed with new blowers, new agitators, new piping. And then we're gonna rehab the one that's in service now. We suspect that one's gonna be in pretty good condition, but we're gonna go ahead and line it anyway. Just as an extra level of protection and also update its mechanical systems. You see a big shiny dome, and right below it, what was a canvas tent that covered the clarifiers. The one with the shiny top had been rehabbed some number of years ago, but never put into operation. So we recently got that one up and running, and that dome as well as the canvas one is being ripped off, and we're replacing those, cause they were both collapsing from, snow loads. We're also replacing all the internals of another, clarifier, new motor drive assemblies, rake assemblies, a little bit of concrete work, weir replacement, which is, kind of what controls the flow of water outside of them. I'm happy to give a tour of the facility at any time, to kind of show the condition of how it is now. And then 2 years from now, we'll have a completely different operation.
Yeah, I'll take the tour.
Yeah.
That pond used to be used, in the process. Our goal is to stop using it completely, after these upgrades are done. Right now, it's only used in emergency situations, like during peak runoff when we have too much flow coming through the plant, we divert a small amount to that. We also have chlorination treatment there's a little shack at the bottom of the road over there, you can kind of see. That has been our final processing for effluent, and we're converting to UV treatment. So, we'll have a much better effluent with no bacteria in it by the time it's done, that we'll be discharging into California Gulch. But this is a huge project. It's gonna take a lot of time. I spent all morning on the phone making sure we still have funding. It's fun.
What'd you
Talk about
find
that
out?
number at the bottom,
Yeah.
16 million.
So we have 16 million in 2 loans, with 2 million forgivable. We have a $750,000 EIF grant, that we're just now able to start using to kind of reimburse the district on some of the planning costs. That's matched at 12%. For every dollar spent, we get 12 cents back. So it's meant to pay out over the whole term of the loan, so it's not just a lump sum they give us back to help, but it is something. We have done a good job of controlling the cost of this project. My goal is to not exceed budget. So we're still working, we did a slow start, about 4 months ago. We decided to go ahead and get a limited small crew up so that we could go through all these plans on site and try to identify any errors before we get the full construction crew. And so far, we've done a great job. I think we've been able to trim about $350,000, which was a big success. So it's more than paid for the early mobilization. And if all goes as planned, we'll be able to add a few of our wish list items that we had to trim early on from the budget, and get a little bit more bang for our buck in this project.
How on earth are y'all gonna pay back $14 million? Like over what period of time?
20 years,
Okay.
so it's 20 years at 2%, so we actually got a really good rate on it. That equates to a little over $650,000 in loan payments a year.
What don't you guys bring in on fees a year?
2.2 million in user fees, and tap fees. The tap fees is restricted money that can only go towards the collection system repairs for the most part. User fees pay for the loans.
We're gonna be operating under pretty tight margins for a while.
Very,
Yeah.
very.
Josh, I got 2 weird ones for you.
Mhm.
What is the ownership structure and what happens to the solids
Ownership structure
of your, cause you're not a,
Sanitation?
we're a quasi-governmental organization, we're a special district.
okay. So there is no,
He has an elected
There's that
board
one.
as well.
oh, okay. But we don't really make decisions for you. There's nothing, we don't answer to the county. And the same with you, Greg. You know.
Sure is nice.
Yeah.
But we definitely collaborate, cause that was,
Yes.
it's very hard to want to do anything without talking to these two.
Yeah.
Takes a village.
Yeah.
There's so many elected officials in this community. How big is your board, Josh?
5 members.
5. And you have 7?
Same.
You have 5. The school board is 7.
Think so?
7. I think it's 7. It's just a lot of people.
And what happens to the solids that you can't?
So since we don't have a line landfill in the county, we currently are having them trucked to the Front Range. So, you know, we de-water, load in large bins that are lined, and we process 2 roll-offs a week on average. And it's expensive to have these things taken out of county
Where
If
does
we
it go?
to Denver.
If we could make a depository in our dump with a liner, we could store it, we could put it in there.
Yes, and there's another long-term future goal. I think if we can change our classification of our solids, potentially it could be used in the composting project for the county.
That'd be awesome.
We've heard some discussion on that.
So as soon as we finish the plant rehab, we'll start looking into what it's gonna take to get to that, a different classification.
Yeah, it'll save you some money, some trucking money.
Yeah, get that loan paid off faster.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Cool.
Good
Oh,
job, Josh.
gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Happy to.
Well, for
Come
someone
back
who's
anytime.
new to the gate, you know, it's, you know a lot of, you know a lot of crap.
It's been a lot. I got to take a vacation for the first time a week ago, so we're making progress.
Alright.
But no, thank you all. Feel free to reach out at any time if you have any questions. And I just gave Adam DeSharm a tour last week, so
Okay.
Cool.
feel free to come take a look.
Yeah, nothing else
will
other
do.
than just like, as long as we're all collaborating with, Public Works and Road and Bridge, make sure that we're not tearing up anything that's gonna, you know, that have just gotten paved, I guess is the only thing that, you know, coming into this with zero knowledge is the only thing I was like, oh, I hope we're not doing that. So,
That's
but I know
huge.
you guys, you know, it's not your first rodeo, so,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
See ya.
Greg Teeter.
I have two signs, 5 or 6 is all good. How are you guys?
Doing
Good,
good.
how are you?
Good to see you.
Same.
We're hanging in there, the bucket's full, you know, it's just stuff's leaking out the
There's a lot
side
to it,
now.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm the Parkville Water District. I've been there forever. Last January 17th. I've been there 53 years.
Is that
Wow.
right?
Dang,
Wow.
I've seen you around,
You don't look that old, Greg.
Pretty
Doing
much.
good.
yeah.
Seriously.
But, we have a lot in common with Sanitation District. We're also a quasi municipality, special district. We were formed in 1964. We took over through a condemnation process on the Leadville Water Company, which was a private commercial company that was based out of Portland, Maine, believe it or not. And most of the profits from the water district, from the Leadville Water Company, went back to the First National Bank of Portland, Maine. And none of it went back in the ground, unfortunately, so I've been playing catch-up for the last 50 years. And we will be playing catch-up for another 50 years, I'm sure.
Mm.
Our biggest, when I took over in 2003, our biggest issues were every winter about this time of year, we literally run out of water because we depend on Evans Creek, our surface water. And this time of year, it would just disappear. It would freeze up and drop in the ground at the water table. And so we solved that by, in 2012, we drilled a well into the Canterbury mine drainage tunnel, which is, it's just north of Janelle's plant. Her tunnel goes more up into the Leadville Basin, and the Canterbury tunnel is more northerly, so it gets the clean groundwater from the Cottonwood Valley. That's our district boundaries. Very current. There is a new annexation across Evergreen Drive, which is Westwood subdivision, as well as Mountain Gate subdivision down County Road 4. We have just under 2,700 service connections.
2,700?
2,700. That means a service line for every one of those that we have to maintain, and as well, we maintain, last time I estimated it was around 30 miles of pipeline, including the transmission lines and the main lines and the service lines. We can go to the next one. That's kind of all those the colored areas on the right is basins east of town where we have water rights. We have active water rights.
How many are we actively drawing out of right now, just the Evans Gulch?
Only right now, just Evans Gulch. We're using some of the water rights we've transferred out of Birdseye Gulch to other areas in our district and other water sources. And lower down, we have Iowa Gulch in that kind of reddish color there. That's our only undeveloped surface water right. But I hope to build a treatment plant there sometime in the next 10 years to use that water right. And then we have Empire Gulch clear on the bottom there. And that's our only water right that has agriculture in the decree as a use. And that's something we can talk about because there's been an ongoing plan for 20 years to take some of the agricultural water from Empire and transfer it to the Long Beach to go to the golf course. To provide cheaper irrigation water on the golf course. There's some infrastructure that needs to be built. We've done quite a bit of the engineering on it, but it's always kind of been on the back burner. And I'd like to see some collaboration with the county to get that on the ground. We have the engineering is pretty much done. It's just mostly installing a couple of partial flume measuring devices and some telemetry. And then that would make it available to transfer somewhere else in the county, like the left ditch or anywhere else, the Dawson Ranch or somewhere that needs service agricultural water.
Dirk, can you explain that a little bit? I'm not familiar with the second word you used.
Yeah, you know, every decree has a use that you have to stick with on the decree.
Yeah.
And all of our other water rights are municipal and domestic. And this is the one water right that includes agricultural irrigation in the decree. So we could potentially use that at the golf course.
Got it.
And there was a long drawn out process, and it came through water court, and the decision was that we would be able to transfer enough to irrigate 12 acres. That would have the golf course quite a bit.
But you would put monitoring equipment on the well or in the
Yeah,
well?
in the stream there.
Oh, in the stream?
Yeah, there's partial flumes that would measure how much water is going through and how much we diverted,
Okay.
and then it would telemetry that to the Division of Water Resources for them to keep track of.
Telemetry.
So it's just radio signal.
Okay.
And I think, just ballpark, you're probably looking at a total of 30 grand to get that project done. So it's not a real high dollar project.
Let's do it this summer.
That sounds good. And like I said, we've got most of the engineering done, and we've got quite a bit of help from the people at the Division of Water Resources on that, so it'd be an excellent project.
Bryce is excited.
For us to do the construction, we're of course is too tight up in town on other things.
How big do you think the backlog of people needing to replace their taps in town is?
Huge. And we're a little bit different from the sanitation because we have ownership from the main line in the street to the edge of the right of way, usually the property line. And from there, the customer owns from the edge of the street to the house. And there's no question about it, we do have significant losses in our system. And that's what we're trying to focus on now, is to tackle those losses. But it's a slow process and it's very expensive project. Talking about our water rights. One of our greatest things that we inherited from Leadville Water Company is these water rights. You can see there's some that are 1860, which makes them among the oldest, most senior water rights on the entire river.
Yeah.
So 1860, 1890, those are probably, even in the worst extended drought, those are not going to get called out by the Division of Water Resources.
Awesome.
Evans Creek, and that includes the Iron Silver Mine, Evans Gulch Branch, and also South Evans up in the Stumptown area. That's a total of about 10 CFS, which is a lot of water. That's paper water. It's not actually wet water. It's just a matter of how much water is available at any given time. And
Paper water.
yeah,
I love that. We had raw water
like Starditch.
yesterday.
Starditch says 50 CFS. There's never ever 50
Yeah.
CFS in Starditch. And but we're in real good shape as far as water rights go. We've never sold any or never transferred any of our water rights.
Is there any threat of losing any of them for not using
There
them?
could be, and the Empire would be one of them because that hasn't been used. The Iowa Gulch water right, we have an agreement with Newmont, which started with Sarco and Resurrection. They're under a consent decree to dewater the Black Cloud shaft and not let the water get up to a certain level. And to do that, they have to have a water right because they're diverting water. So we have an agreement with them that they're allowed to use our water right for their diversions. But if and when we build a water plant up there, we take over that water right and use it, and they're gonna be in trouble.
So is that like, we're all new at this, right? But is that a lease versus a contract then?
It's just an agreement.
It's just an agreement.
We don't get money for it, no.
Cute,
We
okay,
should,
love
yeah.
it.
They did give us a pipeline, we have a pipeline from the Black Cloud mine to our storage tank on Carpenter Hill.
Okay.
And that's a big chunk, and we also have an active right of way for that pipeline.
So just to make sure I'm understanding this, Empire is the one that you haven't used and it's the only one that has the ag.
Agriculture, correct.
So us working with the county will also help Parkville
It will,
save that
Yeah.
water, right? Right?
let me show you somewhere, it's kinda hard to read from here, but our groundwater sources, this is out on 91 by the Arkansas River, just north of the Leadville Mine Drainage Tunnel.
Up by your house.
We have 3 wells there, and their combined capacity of those is right at 1 million gallons a day if we needed it. And that's been all upgraded in the last 10 years, all brand new electrical, new wells, new pumps. And
That's
we
the
only,
big brown building that you guys built?
no, it's 3 small buildings further down by the river,
Okay.
very good water right. And then here's the Canterbury Tunnel, the Leadville Mine Drainage Tunnel all starts right here and goes this direction, up into this area. But the Canterbury Tunnel goes towards where Diamond Lake is and the Diamond Shaft up there. And it was originally intended to go all the way back to here, but they hit so much water, they had to give up because there was too much water, and it's beautiful, clean water. And we rely on that water this time of year because our water mains will freeze. And that's warmer water, it averages 52, 53 degrees. So we rely heavily on the Canterbury well for the warmer water. And in 2012, we ran a pipeline, we drilled into the top of the tunnel from 230 feet above, and then ran 2 miles of pipeline over to our water treatment plant. So that warm water goes through the entire system. And we also have the Elkhorn Shaft, which is east of the treatment plant about a mile. We also rely on that in the winter time, because Evans Creek basically disappears in the winter. And we need the warmer water anyway. And clear up on Mosquito Pass, we have the 2 large reservoirs that are right up about 11,000 feet, I'm sure you've seen them.
Yep.
It's beautiful, beautiful water,
Yeah, don't swim in them.
total of,
No fishing.
yeah. No parties, no woodies.
Yeah.
Total of 300 acre feet of storage, which we don't hardly use anymore because we don't need it.
Yeah.
But we could use
Sarah,
it during
okay.
emergency or whatever. And at the water plant, we have a 1 million gallon underground concrete storage tank that was built in 1985 at the same time as the water plant was built. And on Carpenter Hill, we have another underground concrete tank that is 500,000 gallons of finished water.
So our supply, I mean, like,
So
unlike the
much.
rest of the American West, we're in really good shape supply wise. It's just
Supply-wise,
the
we're in
infrastructure is
Yeah.
falling apart.
We have plenty of water to put in the pipes, the hard part is keep it in the pipes. This summer, we're doing the project up on the top of E6, it's gonna be remove and replace 5 blocks of water main, and it's an 1879 water main. The oldest water main in our system, and probably one of the oldest in the state, I'm sure it's one of the oldest in the state.
Wow.
Do you get to recoup anything off the copper that comes out of that, or?
No, but it's an old cast iron line.
Oh, it's good,
And it has what they call leaded joints, you don't see, it's about this big around, it has big poured leaded joints, the lead doesn't contact the water.
Okay.
But the story is, and Hot Tabor was on the city council, and he helped fund some of that water main out of his own pocket. And each joint takes probably 4 or 5 pounds of lead to seal the joint, and they just basically pour it in there. And the story is, in 1879, there was a shortage of lead in Leadville, so they had to use silver in the joints.
Stop it.
That's why we volunteered to take all of the old pipe.
Good luck.
Treasure
Treasure hunt 2025.
Silver retail, they were just pouring silver everywhere they
Because
could,
it's
huh?
close to 2,000 feet of pipe, and then 27 service lines. It's gonna be a tricky project, partly because the top of E6 and E7 are the 2 main supplies coming from water treatment plant to Leadville. So we have to find a way to bypass the main supplies to town while that project is going on. That's probably in the neighborhood of $2 million, and we also got a $1 million grant from Mineral Impact to pay for that. that'll go out to bid, pretty soon it'll go out to bid in the next couple of weeks.
Same position as sanitation, is that grant possibly up in the air right now, or you think it's
I don't
locked
know.
in?
We've already spent some of it for the
Okay.
engineering, so I'm hoping
Yeah.
it's pretty solid.
I think that, yeah, the mineral impact grant is from the state.
Oh,
We
okay,
have that
that's not
from-
federal.
So yeah, so the Department of Local Affairs has,
You can
Sway
sway to
over
the next
those.
slide. That's all of our water rights, and there's the project area there, starting on the left at Sixth and Orange. We're gonna go all the way up to St. Patrick's Avenue on the top. And you can see that orange line on the very top right, that's the old main line to Leadville, that's the 1870 main line. And in 1985, when the water plant was built, that kind of lavender line on Seventh, that line was put in all the way to Sixth and Ash. So it's a reasonably new line, but it is the main supply line for Leadville. So we need to find a way to bypass, do some jumper lines in order to take the orange line out there on those top lots. It's an interesting, for some reason they put that line inside of a wooden tunnel that's about yay by yay. Over the street. And now the tunnel's collapsing. If you drive up there in the summertime, you can see the dips all the way up there, and that's part of the impetus for doing this project. That and the fact that it's 150 years old.
What size main is that again, Greg?
The main on Sixth is 12-inch, and the main on Seventh is 16-inch. Main feeds of our surface water plant. Our water plant was built in 1985, and in 2020, we gutted the entire plant and put everything new in there. That was a $2 million project. Everything in the plant is new, and also at that time we got the 200 kW backup generator for the plant, so we can operate during an extended power outage.
does Parkville levy a mill?
No,
Just user fees?
yeah, just
Okay.
user fees.
Yeah.
And our user fees and our tap fees are kind of the middle of, around the state, you know, it's hard to compare apples to apples on user rates. Cause like you mentioned, we don't have a mill levy. And we also have 3 reservoirs that we maintain that were built in 1900 era. And we have to keep the state engineer's office happy on our reservoirs. We've upgraded 2 of them, but we have a project hanging. We've done some of the engineering. Our very upper reservoir is to replace the outlet structure in the dam. The state doesn't like it because there's a pressurized pipe to the center of the dam, instead of like a modern dam has no pressurized pipe in the dam. So the idea is to replace that outlet structure, and you're looking at probably just under $1 million. Since we're tied up on 6th Street and 7th Street, we kind of put that on the back burner for a while. And I mentioned we do have some pretty significant losses in our system. There's no question about that, because we have pipes that are 100 and 120 years old. That's Evans Reservoir, our lowest reservoir. It's pretty young.
Great.
We have 9 employees. Our annual budget is just under $6 million. We serve all of the city of Leadville and then all of the unincorporated subdivisions around Leadville. West Park, Matchless, Silver Hills, Four Seasons, Homestake, and there's a couple of proposed subdivisions that are on the horizon. Right now, our total system production capacity is just over 4 million gallons a day, and our average daily system demand it never goes over 1.2 million gallons per day. So we're operating pretty much at a quarter of our capacity, which is a good thing. Those 30 wells we have by the Arkansas River, they're all upgraded and modern, and we rotate between the 3 of them. We hardly ever run more than one of them at a time. So we have a lot of water that we're not using.
Are they all different depths?
Pardon?
Are the 3 of them clustered in different depths?
They're all about the same depth, and they're all about 100 feet from each other, and they all go into the same pipeline that crosses 91 and comes on the north side of 91 to on the Poplar Street. There's no treatment other than chlorine disinfection on that water. It's beautiful clean water.
Yeah, no plans to add fluoride or anything like that?
No, I'm philosophically opposed to fluoride,
Alright,
maybe when I retire, but
maybe keep it in our toothpaste and other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
FDA classifies fluoride as a medicine, and I don't wanna put medicine in the water.
Thank you, Greg.
thanks.
He meant we have a 5-member elected board. Also I mentioned the upgrade to the plant in 2020, and then in 2022, we added onto the building another $2 million and put an extra filter in, which increased the capacity of that water plant to 3.3 million gallons per day. And that plant hardly ever does more than 1 million gallons per day as it is. We're so fortunate with our water quality. It's perfect water quality, it really is.
Drives me nuts when all these people come in from out of town with
Yeah.
these cases of bottled
Yeah,
water,
drives
and
me
I'm
nuts
like,
too.
you know, the stuff that comes off our taps
Yeah.
is cleaner than what you're buying.
Yeah.
What you're paying more for water than we pay for gasoline, just to drink dirtier water.
Yeah, it's a privilege. It's a
And you
privilege
know,
what we have.
There's a lot of
Most
talk
people
about,
don't.
there's a lot of talk
Yeah.
about the forever chemicals, PFAS chemicals.
Yeah. The Upper Peninsula is
And,
swamped in that stuff.
Blue Earth did 5 rounds of sampling for PFAS in all of our raw water and our treated water. And our water is the only place in the county that they did not find any, so,
In the county, the only place in the country?
in the county.
Oh, in the
But
county.
most systems have PFAS in their water around the country, and
Yeah.
a lot of systems are scrambling, trying to figure out how to treat it.
Yeah, cause Climax won't use Summit County's water because of the
Yeah.
PFAS chemical.
Yes, so it's a big problem for most
Um,
districts, but
Do they have their own well system, where do they get their water from?
Climax does have a well. We own part of the Stevens and Lighter ditch water right, and Climax also bought part of that back in the 60s.
Say, you know, what happens in the event of a giant wildfire or something? Is there chemicals that are used to fight wildfires that could contaminate water supplies with
There could be, we
PFAS
did,
stuff?
we went through a program with the state whereby we put all of our source infrastructure on a big map. And the idea is that if there was a wildfire, they would not drop in the chemicals in that area.
Oh, wow,
But
okay.
I'm hoping that's true.
Is that something that might be popping up right now below Twin Lakes?
Yeah, so that was, yeah,
That's a good possibility.
yeah, when we had talked about that initially, and then I think I'll ask Claire to talk a little bit more about it as well, and Chief Daly can too.
I'd be happy to say.
Oh, yeah, and Pat's here too, everybody's
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we got all
Perfect.
the, everyone we need for that
We just
conversation.
looked at each other, one of the things that all the pilots were, at least the heavy air tankers, were very cognizant of were the buffer zones that are recommended around retardant drops. And at least directly closest to Twin Lakes, they didn't come anywhere near, I think what is a 300-foot buffer. I think the closest we measured it was 500 feet,
Okay.
so theoretically, there shouldn't be retardant making its way to Twin.
Awesome.
I can't imagine how they're dealing with that in California right now. We have a watershed protection plan in place through CDPHE. Ours is one of the first municipal watershed protection plans through CDPHE, and that's been in place for 25 years. That gives us some authority over any activities in our watershed.
Cool. Outside of the containment of the water, everything else is like one of the first subjects in days that isn't giving me extreme anxiety.
Do we have any lead piping, with water in it?
As far as we know, we only have 2 lead service lines in our system. We had to go through that huge process for CDPHE of service line inventory. It took 3 people on our staff 2 months, in which time we could have devoted to actually removing lead service lines, but we were too busy because of that. We'll tackle that this spring.
Greg, do you, after chatting with Bryce the other day, it's been really interesting to hear how the county,
Right.
Bryce Ehrlich, it's been interesting to hear how the county is going to be managing now.
County's odd plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our leasing and then collecting money that would fund our program. Does Parkville do leasing with their Like, how do you manage your water rights, and do you make any money off of leasing your water
No,
rights?
and none of our water rights have augmentation in the decree, so we're
Okay.
very careful not to avoid that.
Mhm.
We did try to get augmentation put into one of our water rights, and red flags went up all the way to Kansas, so we backed off on that.
Okay.
Water law in the state is,
I was on the Water Advisory Council when we put that decree together and got it through court.
Okay.
It's not a lot of water, I think. The average yield is gonna be around 70 acre feet from that. And I don't know if any of that has gone out to lease or not.
Okay.
But,
Just wondering if there were other ways for you to make money to be able to chip
Yeah.
away at your infrastructure issues.
yeah,
Okay.
I've thought about that a lot of times in the past, but we've always backed off on that since we don't have augmentation in our decrees.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
sweet, any
My
other
pleasure.
questions from you
Yeah.
guys?
I think like I said, I think we're in pretty good shape, and we're gonna be tearing up streets too from now on. You know, replacing pavement is a big part of any service line repair.
Mhm.
We'd be happy to collaborate with County Road and Bridge and the city
Excellent, thank you.
and get things done.
Yeah, I'd like to request a ride along and see some of the things you're talking
Anytime,
about, 'cause
anytime.
it's really complicated. Hard for me to follow.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see it all and see how it all works, Greg. It's,
And you ought to take a tour of Janelle's plant too sometime, because it's pretty impressive.
yeah.
Yeah.
My cards, if you guys wanna contact me or send me an email, any questions at all.
When would be a good time in the spring? Cause there's probably, or do you keep all that stuff plowed?
It's plowed up to, not to our reservoir, but up to our water plant, of course. Out to our wells is all plowed.
Okay. We wouldn't necessarily have to wait till it dries out?
Yeah, if you wanna see the reservoirs and stuff, which is pretty interesting,
Yeah.
because those were all built around 1890, and then all three of them were also expanded about 1904.
Mm.
And that, we have a pipeline that goes up Evans Gulch that collects water. It's kind of like a reverse sewer collection system, but we collect groundwater and that takes it to our lowest reservoir.
Mm.
That was put in 1904 due to a typhoid outbreak in
Whoa.
the Stumptown area. And that's why that was put in, and we're still using it to this very day, because there was 12,000 people living up in Stumptown at one time.
Yeah.
And the guy that had my job in 1904, I have a copy of the New York Times article where 8 or 10 people died drinking Leadville water, so I wouldn't want to be in his shoes.
Greg, I want your oral history.
Yeah, I've got
Oh
a
my
lot
gosh,
of it.
can't wait to get you in front of a
Yeah,
reporter.
I've got a lot of it.
Awesome.
The Leadville Water Company was owned by a guy named Cleves. Warren Cleves, I think was his first name.
Mhm.
He was actually the governor of Maine, and that's why he owned the First National Bank of Portland, Maine. And
Interesting,
for some reason, he owned the Leadville Water Company.
interesting.
But it was very fortunate for us because we inherited all those
Yeah.
senior water rights.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
pretty cool. Stop by anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
I'll show you some old pictures.
Thanks for coming.
You bet. Thanks.
Good seeing you.
See ya.
I am
These are
going
yours, Greg?
to
Yes.
take 5 minutes, real quick.
Sorry, we're behind you.
We're always behind this.
We have a lot of
Right down the
questions.
table.
Pat, feel free to come on.
This is the presenting lectern.
Yes, that is it.
It's the hot seat.
Alright.
I'm gonna go to
things for you. I don't know if you wanna follow along, if you just want me to put it here for you.
Alright.
That's it.
Is it a,
It's just basically a bulleted outline
Oh,
of the
sure,
three
yeah,
things that
thank
I'm gonna
you.
give.
Perfect. Sir?
You're welcome.
I did not have a shake-up with Cooper's management on my 2025 bingo card. So that is, I guess something else that is gonna not complicate, but just change things potentially for you guys working with them out there, huh?
Yes, it's a conversation that needs to be revisited, at another time, I think.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've mentioned a couple things just very briefly about it at the tail end here. It's on there.
Okay.
I was trying to save paper, it's front and back, numbered though,
Sweet.
so hopefully that helps you out. But yeah, it's one of many things, probably the same as Greg. In thinking through how to share information with you and what's important to share. It's voluminous. And I hope that this just at least scratches the surface enough for further awareness beyond what you probably already have. Cause I don't know your history in Lake County per se, but I've been the ranger here for 5 years and I'm continuing to find things that are informing the way that I do my job that are historic. And that's, I think, probably par for the course with a lot of positions. Just look back and okay, decades that preceded do help us figure out why something is the way it is and what we're dealing with now. So, it's been a good 5 years, good learning experience so far. I'll just start out with a bit of an intro about myself. I wasn't born and raised here. I come from the Midwest originally, Cincinnati kid. And then after that, I did spend some time in the Navy, and one of the things that I remember, which is probably not something I do a great job at, is the ABCs of radio communication is accuracy, brevity, and clarity. And I think in a verbal setting, I fail at that. So, please provide me
You're
some
in good
grace
company.
as I work through this presentation. So following that stint, I went to Ohio State, and then after that, it was pursuing a career with the Forest Service, and that was primarily in wildlife. I was a wildlife technician. I started out seasonally, sort of came up from the ground, and then became a biologist, and then had, a few different details and ranger positions, and then got my first ranger position here in Leadville. But I've worked in the Intermountain West and the Midwest through the course of my career, which is now nearing 25 years. So it's been a long one, and hopefully I've picked up some things along the way that have served this community well, and I'm sure I'll be continuing to learn as I go. Let's see, to share a little bit more, overview. So the Leadville district is part of the Pike San Isabel National Forest and Cimarron and Comanche National Grasslands. The headquarters for all of those units that we are a conglomerate of is in Pueblo. And so that's where my boss sits. His name's Ryan Neal. He's the forest supervisor. We also have a deputy forest supervisor. It's Jim Pitts. Jim Pitts used to be the Salida District Ranger. You might remember that if you've been around a little bit, seen his name in the paper. He also, before I got here, I think he acted as a Leadville Ranger too. So that, he does have some local familiarity with the area, and that's nice when we're talking, about issues, to have some local familiarity versus bringing someone up from zero. Mission of the Forest Service, again, very high level stuff, but to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands, to meet the needs of present and future generations. And what that means here locally, what does the national forest look like here locally? And Lake County, it's roughly 70% of the land base. Chaffee County is about the same. The Leadville district covers all of Lake County, at least the NFS lands, National Forest System lands in Lake County are all part of the Leadville district. And then the district also extends south into sort of the northern 1/4, I call it, of Chaffee County, basically down to Mount Columbia,
on one side and Elephant Rock on the other side of the river. And then just sort of slivers up and then expands out a little bit wider once you get to Buffalo Peaks Wilderness. Collegiate Peaks on that side is pretty much all Leadville. So that's the outlook, but I know that this is all very relevant to Lake County, so I'm gonna try to keep it there. Some of the interest for Lake. Let's see, district as a whole is just shy of 300,000 acres. And about half of that is wilderness. It's a little under that, but we have 4 different wilderness areas. You probably are familiar with them. A little bit of the Holy Cross Wilderness, all of Mount Massive, part of Collegiate Peaks Wilderness, which is shared between 3 other districts and Leadville, and then Buffalo Peaks, which is shared across 2 other districts. Both of those are PSICC, Pike San Isabel districts, South Park and Salida. And so the ability that we have to do active management in wilderness is much less than non-wilderness, just because of the Wilderness Act of 1964, and how interventionist we can be within those areas. So that trims the scale really of very active management down to 150, 160,000 acres here, and that's primarily hemmed in through the valley. Once you get into really the higher peaks and the high country and the back country, a lot of that's wilderness. So that's the general layout. So I apologize if this is all stuff that you already knew, but I wasn't sure what I was walking into totally.
You can see it over on this map too, where
Yes.
you can see the different
Yeah.
forest areas, and you can see wilderness versus non-wilderness
Yeah, and I
pretty clearly.
might use this time or two for some graphic representation, which for the folks online, they just get to listen, they don't get to look at pretty pictures, and nobody else in the room either, so no diagrams here, but hopefully this will still suffice. So across those acres, we collaborate with a lot of different partners and organizations, cooperators to help the Forest Service manage this. We couldn't do it in any other way. We don't have the current staff to do everything, and I know we don't do everything, but to do as much as we can, it takes a lot of assistance. And currently in the district office, normally if we were fully staffed at that office, we would have 20 people there in the office, and right now we have half that. And where we do have people, it's the demand on our time and the demand that the resources bring associated with the visitation and some of the other priorities. We have priority projects that's not visitation, it's just about landscape conditions. We're limited with what we can do. We do share some staff across the 3 districts of the San Isabel, which are Leadville and then Salida, and then the San Carlos district. We do have a couple of different shared staff members in vegetation management, hydrology in those areas, but it's shared. So we're kind of taking turns with who does what to help us plan our projects and be responsive to the public needs. I would also say this too, as district ranger, I think it's imperative that the motto of the agency of caring for the land and serving people is at the forefront. And I know, and I can appreciate as commissioners how you may share a similar ethos as far as that is concerned, a motto that guides you. I'm the decision maker for the Leadville district. I can sign certain things. I have a certain authority to sign certain things, and with that comes a heavy responsibility, and I take that very seriously. You'll find, at least in interactions, I don't rush into decisions. There's probably a few people on the call here that would confirm that. But there's sometimes where decisive action is needed, and you gotta be able to step up and do that as well. But that guides me, so I just wanna start out with that premise. But I wanna contextualize a little bit more about the district. I recognize the district's niche is recreation. Primarily, that's who the majority, or, you know, who are coming to Leadville and Lake County, that's who we're serving. They come here to some degree in the winter, but to a much heavier degree in the summer. And they fill up our campgrounds. You can't hardly get a reservation at a campground unless you got a trigger finger on that mouse, right? Rec.gov, and people are in there and they're reserving stuff, which is great, and they reserve it immediately. And so that indicates the demand. I'm just alone, and I'll be jumping around with the bullet points, but just alone within the campgrounds, when they're at full capacity, it doubles the population of Lake County. That's just the campgrounds. That's not all the other stuff that's going on in the district too. And so you have people everywhere, and trying to provide for all of them it can be challenging. We've got, again, partners and cooperators, and in the case of campgrounds, concessionaires to help us do that. And we wouldn't be able to run the campgrounds, not effectively anyway, without a good concessionaire. And so that's a permit that they hold to help us run those and collect fees, and then, you know, there's fee generation that comes out of that too, that we reinvest back into the campgrounds to help them stay, you know, good condition, help maintain the good opportunities that are out there. We also, so aside from all of the recreation that's happening out there, the other side of what the Forest Service does here locally is help to create community resilience and improve forest health and reduce risk around wildfire, and try to maintain what we have there out on the ground, because, you know, a large event, especially over only, let's just call it loosely 300,000 acres, we've seen some of these mega fires, and under the right conditions, I'm not saying we've had the right conditions, but under the right conditions or the wrong conditions, we could lose a lot of that. And so that's again something we're trying to make headway on. Now, how we do that is it's multi-pronged. So one of the guiding documents that helps inform where we go is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and that was revised in 2022 with the current, or with the prior board. We worked through that very deliberately, because from the time that it was prior revised, there was new information, new data to help inform that process, to help inform the modeling, and really to help steer us in the right directions for where we might go and treat next. You know, to continue to try to reduce that risk, because you don't have to treat everywhere to reduce the risk. You need to treat the most important areas. So for Leadville, that is really around the water bodies is where we've started. We've done some treatments elsewhere, but certainly around Turquoise and Twin Lakes is where we are focused. You'll probably be familiar with the Tennessee Creek project, which has analyzed, I think, 16,000 roughly acres. And so when I say analyzed, I mean through the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. You know, that's how our process works for rolling out projects, introducing projects, analyzing, making decisions on projects, all run through the NEPA process first as a federal agency. So that project was signed in the mid-teens, and then we were able to actually put it on the ground and into action. I think the first year of treatment on that was 18 or 19, like basically right before I came on board as a ranger. And you've seen those treatments, I'm sure, around Twin. And they're a combination of things based on what kind of stands we're treating in. And so up to this point, since then, it's been about 2,000-ish acres of treatment. And we've got several hundred more acres laid out already, and are exploring other areas too. So started at Twin, and that's really the big project for Leadville, for the Leadville district right now, is around, I'm sorry, Turquoise.
Turquoise, I was like,
Yeah,
not
sorry.
turquoise, I thought that was
Started
part
at
of it.
Turquoise, thank you. I was like, wait, what did I
I
say?
didn't know there was
Whoa.
already.
I haven't started yet, in the works. Started around Turquoise, you've seen kind of how it's sort of been a south and eastward progression around the lake up
Yeah.
towards the north side there. That's primarily where treatments have been happening there. We are now and have been laying out treatments for the Half Moon drainage, which is also encompassed as part of that project. And then also, Mount Zion area as well as Missouri Hill. So all of those are set to be laid out if they are not already laid out. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. I won't bore you with all that kind of stuff. But those areas up north, specifically, you know, around that 91 area, that 91-24 split up there, in terms of the CWPP and what that showed us from a modeling perspective is very important too. So we've got like acute resources out there and assets, values, whatever you wanna call it, out there on the ground with the water bodies themselves. And then we also have, you know, the risk that we can reduce in other places that don't have those same types of resources that we're looking to treat to help break up the continuity of fuels around the area and reduce the fuel loading, which all goes back to historic conditions, settlement, and what the forests look like now, what fire suppression looked like over decades and decades, and what we have to deal with at this point.
Like most of this area was fairly clear cut at one point, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
all the forests are basically all the same age, all the same tree, all due to all that clear cutting historically, right?
There's species differentiation, but there certainly is primarily second growth. I think, you know, if you were to look in the hardest to get to pockets, maybe there's something that someone might consider old growth out there. But
Like
most of
Bear
this,
Lakes and stuff like
most of this, yeah, like I'd say 99.9% is second growth. It is, you know, post settlement, a lot of lodgepole in some areas, but you also have mixed conifer, which, you know, is a variety of species, and then the spruce fir component at your higher elevations. And so our treatment ability, based on other factors, most specifically, I would say the Southern Rockies Links Amendment is limited in the mixed con and the spruce fir because of the habitat conditions that supports for lynx, which is a endangered species. This is, you know, under the ESA.
Which is mostly the east side, whereas the west side is more,
West side actually has a lot of the lynx habitat.
oh, really?
East side has a little bit less, yeah.
Ski Cooper.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly, there's,
Oh, cool.
that.
Leadville is fortunate enough, I guess, in terms of species recovery to be a really good spot for species recovery.
Neat.
Recently, the Fish and Wildlife Service proposed critical habitat for lynx, and the critical habitat pretty much overlaps with all of the lynx areas, lynx linkages as we call them, and the tier 1 habitat that we had already been planning for, and so it's a pretty good overlap for what was proposed.
What is the wildlife corridor areas that I see overlays on some maps of?
Yeah, those came out of a wildlife mapping tool effort that was really led by Colorado Parks and Wildlife, in association with, I think there was some CSU cooperation with that as well, and Colorado Forest Restoration Initiative is another one that's come to the table to help us with mapping and understanding, you know, the connectivity.
Yeah.
It's really about connectivity, habitat connectivity across the landscape. What's the best of what's left out there? And, you know, what has recovered from prior activities? What's recovered, what serves as really good functional connective habitat?
Okay.
So that mapping tool took a lot of input from biologists that work in Lake County, whether they be CPW or US Forest Service or Bureau of Land Management. And it sort of melded it all based on certain criteria to help with planning efforts so that we can see more at a glance. And it's not just for lynx, like across all of these different species, what habitat is most important, where that overlap is, so what we're trying to, you know, conserve over time. I'm guessing that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, okay. You know, I'd like to not at this specific sit down here, but follow up on some other concerns that I have, from the community in general as well about a lack of designated areas where OHVs can recreate. And what we're seeing is that they're just, without any designated areas, it's kind of turned pretty lawless. And if we could enhance, have a further discussion about that, at a better time to sort of brainstorm possible solutions and locations. I would really like to, so I'll reach out, and see when we can sit down and chat about some of that stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Okay.
And by and large, like, on the recreation side, and we'll flip it to some degree too. And in the interest of time, I'll probably try to speed it a little bit, but, yeah, OHVs, are able to be driven on forest system roads. We just do not have any specific trails, nor does our motor vehicle use map designate any specific corridors for OHVs versus not. So that's the current status on that. Yeah. So we also have, we've got different projects. Most of the projects that we have are based around vegetation management, fuels management, and then we've also got other projects based around recreation. I'll just real quickly touch on Twin Lakes, only because it was it was front and center last summer because of the interlocking fire, and I'm fortunate to have a good partner here in the room that really assisted with that effort, and Chief Daly and his staff. But every Lake County entity that could be a responder showed up big for that, and so I will always be eternally grateful for that effort by the county and county employees and entities. But that was also, I think, a result of, like, everybody knew, like, mission was clear, right? We were gonna go full suppression on that. It wasn't gonna be something that we were gonna try to manage, just because of the resources at play there at Twin and the potential that fire had. So, we did manage that, and we managed it effectively, like, as a team. It wasn't just a Forest Service team. That was everybody that came out and helped with that effort. Coincidentally, that fire occurred in the footprint of what was already laid out as the Twin Lakes project, at least proposed as the Twin Lakes project, which validated certainly the need to go treat there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it slowed that project down, because in the NEPA world, you have to account for the current condition. And so when that happened, it changed the current condition. So in June, actually I think it was 6 days before that fire started, we actually had sent the decision out for review, for public review. And then the fire started,
Wow.
and we had to pull it back. So after pulling it back, then we had to go back to the table and say, okay, what did the fire do? How do we account for that? What does it mean for the rest of the project area? And so that project is now closer to where it was again, and we're at the tail end of that NEPA process. But what that would do then is it won't take the focus off of turquoise, but it'll add more potential treatment area to these high value areas, such as, these water bodies. And that would be treating west really of what the fire scar is now, and basically up to the western water body of the lakes. So so I just wanna quickly mention that, and then we can transition into, like, recreation. Okay, there's a lot of it going on out there. We've got, hundreds of miles of trails, and that's across, like, that includes wilderness, non-wilderness. And then we've got all these roads out there on the ground, and all of those get used for recreation. Some are easier to get to than others, of course. One of the things that we're working on right now, outside of the developed campgrounds, because we've got a decent handle on those through the concessionaire, is working on what really started before I got here, but boomed in the pandemic year one of that anyway, was all of the dispersed camping that happens off the roads. And there's a large land base that we manage, fairly hemmed in, but those areas that can be accessed by vehicle off National Forest System roads Many of them have been accessed, and those pushes came in 20 and 21. Really big events, and then now since they were created, and visitation has, I think, stabilized, but because those were created, those get reused, and they're not always in sustainable spots, and so on the recreation side, the next project that is also towards the tail end of analysis for NEPA is dispersed camping management project. And in the main proposal there is to create designated dispersed car camping. So it's anything accessible off of system roads, doesn't apply to trails, doesn't apply to wilderness. It's just for basically that car camping experience. Because we've got a number of different areas, and I could call them all out on the map, you guys are probably familiar with all of them.
Yeah.
They've got some issues and they're overrun, and some of the spots are not sustainable, some are totally sustainable. And so we try to draw that out through that project, and hopefully that'll be coming online soon. One of the things I would caution against, because we've seen it elsewhere, and on the National Forest system as a whole, is if that type of management starts taking place, you're squeezing a balloon. So some of that activity will go to other land ownerships. And whether that happens in the county, out of the county, I mean, certainly we think about that for adjacent districts, whether that be on the White River or other forests, the Gunnison for that matter. Some of that is going to, people will go where they can go.
You mean if we try to clamp down
Yeah,
on the
if you
dispersed
hem it
camping?
in, exactly. If you hem it in, it's, okay, well, maybe that area is now designated, what's not? And then that's where people will go, and we can't do it all at once. I mean, even if this proposal does go through and we can get a decision on it, it's a long-term project, and it's based on the conditions on the ground.
So basically, as opposed to clamping down and cutting back on it, giving them better options in the same area.
Sustainable options.
Yeah.
More specifically, yes, that's been our concern, that's grown over time, is the sustainability of the current camping situation, because it's not everywhere where it occurs. And, that's what we're about, sustainable management across the landscape. So that's coming up, and hopefully you'll be seeing more about that, but it could have some impacts elsewhere. We also, here on the district, the Forest Service, which is really the Colorado 14ers program, is managed out of the Leadville office. So, there's 48 peaks, I believe. This may be arguable, somebody'd be like, well, actually, it's 49. You've probably heard that before. 48 managed on National Forest System's lands, okay? Not all of them occur here on the district, I think, arguably, again, 10 occur on the Leadville district. So predominance of out of the 54 to 56 or 7, depending, across the state. But the program is managed out here, and we recognize that there's also a lot of visitation that comes here by people wanting to peek back, or just get that first one in and call it good. And so there's been some effort around that too. There was an effort led by Get Outdoors Colorado, or funded by Get Outdoors Colorado, and really led by National Forest Foundation, which is our congressionally chartered nonprofit that works directly with the Forest Service to go through a visioning process, and these are for all the peaks around the state. But then it hem that in a little bit to certain areas of the state, and so out of that process came a centennial grant through GOCO, and then that's going to fund some of the peak work, most notably probably on Democrat, to get some work done up there. And then we also did receive some funding here in the valley for certain amenities associated really with 14er trailheads. It's primarily where the money came to the valley with, but it's something we recognize, brings people in, there's a lot of users, dispersed camping's related to it. So that's that program in itself, which does partner with Colorado 14ers Initiative in most cases, and then to some degree with Rocky Mountain Field Institute, more on the Pike side of things. They've helped us create sustainable trails up these peaks in this fragile environment. And trails are either completely planned at this point or implemented, one or the other, of all of the Forest Service 14ers anyway, which is a big accomplishment. And yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the former 14er program manager Loretta McElhenney, which she retired after 35 years of service, I think it was, with the Forest Service. Yeah, she helped build that program, and we're just trying to carry it forward and do it justice as we finish it out. But that's notable, at least for the Leadville district. Let's see, I'm gonna try to, funding opportunities, we work with a lot of entities to, aside from our appropriated funding from Congress, which is, you know, frankly, it's up in the air as to what that looks like from year to year. Sometimes it's a little bit more consistent, other times it's not. Obviously, we just had an administrative change, you know, in the Oval Office and certainly, you know, some changes in Congress too. And so, what that trickles down, eventually it trickles down to the field level as to what happens, what appropriations come in, what new initiatives might be administration priorities. And so right now, some of that is working its way out and through the system. And at the same time, we have existing funding streams that came through, grant dollars and other initiatives that we went for even years ago. Good example as California Gulch Natural Resources Damage Settlement. Some of those funds are available, and Lake County and the Forest Service and nonprofit ARWIC, Arkansas River Watershed Collaborative, all grouped together and identified some projects back in 21, 22, I think it was, to put forth a good proposal, and we got the proposal awarded. And so this year, one of the things that's a nexus between county and Forest Service is a new crossing right there, really at Half Moon Creek, right where the main Mount Massive trailhead is. That's gonna be moved, because right now that is not sustainable. If there was a big flood or post-fire issues in the area, there's a good chance that crossing as it stands right now would be wiped out. So there's a new crossing planned for that area, funded by NRD settlement. Some of the Half Moon fuels treatments are gonna be funded through NRD, also in association with ARWIC, who's helping to implement those treatments. So we look for different opportunities. I think there's some, you know, healthy watershed dollars that we're also looking to try to capture in the event that Twin Lakes finally gets a decision, because it sets us up for the ability to fund the treatments. When I say fund the treatments, I don't know if there's an awareness of how much it costs to treat per acre. On average, depending on what type of treatment it is, it's $2,000 an acre. And it goes up depending on limitations, you know, like what's the terrain like? If it's steep or slope, you gotta bring in specialized equipment, and that'll ramp up the cost of treatment. We don't, as opposed to other forests maybe elsewhere where the product is valuable, there's no product value really here. You know, there's a payment to contractors to come take it, versus the opposite situation elsewhere where like they'll bid on a contract because the timber's valuable. So right now, there's really no market, at least locally, that can absorb the volume that we need to remove to help with the treatments. So the cost is extremely high, and that means then too that the pace of implementation is slower than what we'd like it to be. So what personally I think would love to see is markets that are receptive to receiving that timber for some use. I mean, there's been other places like the San Juan National Forest has a couple of places that can receive it because they can do something with it with wood products primarily. Cross-laminated timber, you know, is another one. But there's nothing locally here, and there's no mills even too. So like that increases the cost of doing business as well. So unfortunately, that's the hand we're dealt right now, and we're trying to figure out like what the best way is, you know, to to be able to treat really what amounts to, as the CWPP talked about, roughly 25,000 acres to reduce the risk by about 60%.
Wow,
And it costs about $50 million to do that.
wow.
So that's kind of that's the figures we're working with. You can obviously get a difference, in the percentage of risk reduction, but that's what we're really trying to work our way up to over the next decade, are those amounts. And so we do have, cooperators certainly that help fund treatments because they have a vested interest. One of the main ones is Colorado Springs Utilities. And there's others, obviously, that have a stake, literally a stake in the water at Twin and Turquoise. And so they come to the table because it's very real for them. They've been coming to the table actually for interlock and post-fire recovery efforts. I think there's been an article or two out about that. And so that's very real, and so it resonates, but it costs a lot of money. And so if we can ever get to a spot where we can reduce that, we can do a lot more than what we're doing now. So just the reality of doing business, so to speak. Other recreation related things, we partner with a lot of folks to try to get as much done as we can with who we have. There's an initiative that was basically, it was incepted probably a decade ago, but really didn't get off the ground until the past couple of years. That's Friends of Lake County. And so we're working on a partnership agreement there, and Jane Schaefer's at the table for that one. And assisting us with, like even last year we were doing projects. We've had a long-standing partnership with Friends of Twin Lakes as well, to really help steward the area around the historic district as well as around Interlochen. They've been great partners in those efforts, and we're looking to build that capacity too. Cloud City Wheelers, another one that has come to the table, has great capacity. We'll be trying to put together another new agreement with them because they had a 5-year, and every 5 years we gotta do another one. That's basically how it works for us. So those as well, just to try to build capacity because we don't have the in-house capacity to do everything that we'd like to do. We got Lake Forest Health Council and Harmony Jump as facilitator for that, Central Colorado Conservancy. That brings people to the table too. Typically there's 1 or 2 commissioners that come to the table for that, which leads me to probably something more important given the amount of time here. I don't know how operations are going to be continued with who might be the commissioner, or if you all are even gonna run it the same way as the last set of commissioners did, but we typically had a kind of a point person, a point of contact and a go-to for a lot of the natural resource issues. If that nexus was there, it was usually Sarah Mudge. And so I don't know if that's gonna be how it operates, if it's gonna be kind of like management by committee or input by committee. But that'd be something we'd be interested in understanding so that we're not necessarily inundating everyone, unless that's what you all want, and that's okay. We can do it however, but just knowing that would help too.
I think we're all pretty passionate on the subject, for sure, between the 3 of us, but I think I'd like to confer with county manager and see what was working with the previous setup and pros and cons, and then we'll just come up with a decision and move forward and let you know who our direct line is for you guys.
Okay, yeah, typically like for certain agreements, I'll use the Independence Pass agreement. That agreement has 5 parties associated with it, Lakes 105, and then there's Pitkin County, and there is Independence Pass Foundation, Aspen Soaker's District, and the Leadville District. We all kind of pool resources to help basically maintain Independence Pass, which is effectively, as we all know, more like a rest stop that's funded collectively through local entities. And so that's like an example of like 1 commissioner signs typically for that agreement. For that one in particular, there is a funding contribution from Lake County that's been going on for the last 15 years. This year it's a $1,600 contribution, so it's like, well, who might we talk to get that moving so that when the pass opens, everything's set up, that all parties have recommitted again. So curious about that. But yeah, it's typical for, and again, it is what it is, like the Ski Cooper permit, speaking of, I think there was one commissioner that signed on that permit. Lake County is the permit holder for that, the primary permit holder. You all sure know, but then it's basically the operations of that permit are leased out to Cooper Hill DBA. And so because of that, it's like, there's some intricacies there and certainly some conversations that need to happen in the future. And I plan to I'll reach out at this point to all three of you to try to set up another conversation on that, so you can expect probably that would be my next correspondence. Just to try to keep that process moving because of the non-compliance letter that the Forest Service sent out in October, I think it was. And, get all parties talking.
Yeah, the chain of dominoes off of that one's pretty far reaching.
It is, yeah, and so, certainly more to talk about and more to move forward with that, and, so I don't wanna belabor the points there, but, we'll certainly be talking about that some more. Trying to think if there's anything else critical here. I am familiar with the Lake County One Community Project. I don't know a lot about it. I've been, me and my staff have been enlisted to maybe help provide information relevant to that project. And it's not really about that project per se, but as just sort of a general principle. The Forest Service wants to be at the table when we have the relevant information to share. And so I'm interested in sharing information, providing, the expertise that we have to help inform projects like that or other projects too.
And they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have been in the past and we see doing that in the future. Likewise, if there's anything that, me or my staff can help you all sort of get to the bottom of, or like, why is it this way, or you have questions about something, please give me a call, and if I don't have the answer, I can probably find the answer or give you a good reason as to why we don't have the answer.
So
So,
we've got a lot of questions, so
Okay,
we're gonna be in
good.
touch,
good,
for sure.
Are you in communication with Anne at the building department?
I am,
She's the one like running it from the county side. Obviously, staff correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah,
as long
she's,
as you're on board with Anne and she's collaborating with you, then the county and the One Community Project is collecting your information.
okay, good deal, yeah, Ann has sent me some things over time, and I
Great.
remember having conversations about backcountry zoning and how all that played out and some of those things in code, and we just appreciate like having voices heard and maybe just getting a different perspective to the table too, cause not everybody's a land manager. So, yeah, appreciate that,
Yeah.
thanks.
Cool, any other questions?
Not for me, thank you.
Absolutely, yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much,
again
Pat.
for the time, it's
Yeah,
a pleasure to
thank you
meet
so
you all
much.
finally, and please
Yeah.
be in touch.
Yeah,
Yes, we
same.
will be.
Thank you.
Alright.
Should we take a quick break?
What do we got next?
If anyone needs one, yes, I am definitely okay with that, I am okay to keep moving forward if anyone else is. We have fire,
Fire and CSU,
CSU extension.
Same Diana.
so we Yes, also I will show you how to run this thing.
I can't wait.
Do you wanna introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Just,
So I'm Diana Sollenberger, and so I am the brand new extension director for Lake County. So a little bit about me, I actually grew up in Alaska, on Kodiak Island. And so when I finished my master's degree, I moved back to Alaska, and I actually moved to Barrow or Utqiagvik, which is as far north as you can go in the US. So when I was there, I actually started the Tribal College Extension Program. So I have worked in extension my entire life, or my entire career, I guess, not my life, but, and so it's like a program I'm extremely passionate about, and I'm excited to bring it here. When I left Alaska, I was actually in Golden, so I worked for CSU Extension for the last 5 years, and there I ran their 4-H and their youth outreach program. So that's me. I've heard you guys had a presentation a couple weeks ago from James Pritchard from CSU. So I'm gonna do my best not to repeat anything. I didn't actually know he was giving that presentation, and then so we have 1 or 2 slides that are exactly the same.
Nice.
But as you said, any questions, just jump in, let me know. I have a presentation, but we don't have to follow it. We can do whatever you guys wanna do. So CSU Extension and kind of what it is for Lake County. So, and I think this is the slide you guys will have seen before. So CSU Extension is kind of as part of a nationwide network of universities that are intended to kind of bring research-based information to local communities. It originally started with the land-grant universities, which was actually started in 1862 by President Lincoln. And at that point in time, they realized there was a big disconnect between universities and actually the common person. And so that was intended to make university education more accessible to everyday people. And they did that by granting land to each state, and so then each state could create their own university. And it's mostly typically the ag schools, is what they're known for. About 50 years after that, we had the Smith-Lever Act, which is what created the Cooperative Extension Program. And this whole Cooperative Extension Service is pretty much, it's the outreach arm of the university. And it's intended so that you have university employees who are based in each county, ideally every county throughout the nation. It's not quite that good, they try, but they're not quite there. And the idea is that we're bringing information from the university or the university systems to your local community. So that's kind of my job here, is that I'm bringing both CSU information as well as other land-grant universities and making it available for the Lake County residents. So pretty much as soon as 1914 started, that is when CSU started that, and so the Extension Service in Colorado was started, and they did hire pretty much, some counties hired extension professionals immediately, so it's kind of been going in a lot of counties since 1914. That being said, 4-H actually started before the Extension Service, so that started in 1902. So it's been going for a very, very long time. As of right now, we have extension offices in 56 of the counties in Colorado. That one says 2000s, 54 counties, so it's actually increased a tiny bit since then. And each county is a little bit different. One of the things that they always say, and it's kind of a joke, is that if you know one extension program's or one county extension program, you know just one county's extension program, because every single program is a little bit different. Our directive is very much to work with our organization, or with our community and our stakeholders to figure out what is wanted here. So what might be relevant in Gilpin County might not be relevant in Lake County, and what's definitely relevant in Jefferson County or Larimer is not gonna be relevant here in the mountains. So if you're looking at, this is a very wordy mission for the extension mission. The important part really is that first part, where it's they're empowering Coloradans to address emerging issues using dynamic science-based educational resources. So it really is trying to pull what's at the county or at the state level and then bringing it back down to the county level. Now, for Lake County, the extension office actually closed in 1977. It briefly reopened in 2022, and then unfortunately due to staffing, it closed again at the end of the year in 2023. So it has been closed for a year, and we just reopened it when you guys hired me in December. So it's actually a really unique and kind of an important opportunity because Lake County is the most recently reopened program. we have a chance to kind of look at the community, look at all of the extension programs in general, decide what this community actually wants to see, and create an extension program that's based on what the stakeholders here are interested in. When I was hired, the job description had been rewritten so that it's more focused on natural resources and community development. However, with my background, is that I have background in youth education and I have worked in other areas of extension. So if there's nothing entirely off the table, but at the moment, I'm very much listening to what the community is interested in. As I said, I am brand new here, so what I have been working on is meeting with as many groups and as many organizations as I can, and just listening. At the moment, I'm just sitting and listening and letting people tell me what they think is important. My overall goal is to make sure that I'm not duplicating efforts that are done by other organizations. This community has a lot of very active community groups. And so I don't want to take over or recreate the wheel with something that somebody else is doing. My goal is more to find the gaps, to see where I can fit in and what programming CSU can provide that'll fit those areas, or how can I elevate or expand the programming that's already been done. So as I said, community, I'm listening to people both formally, informally. Really truly the next couple months, that's mostly what I'm gonna be doing, but I'm hoping within 3 months or so to be starting programs. Let's see what I'm doing here. Did I do something? Sorry, I pushed buttons. Okay, so this is the Lake County government's contribution to the extension office budget. So as of right now, the professional service line item is my salary and benefits, and Lake County government is providing 20% of that, and then CSU is providing the other 80%. We do have a little bit of money for training and supplies, so I think one of my key priorities this year is going to be finding supplemental additional money so that I can run more programs. Are there any questions on that budget before I move on?
The differences between 24 and 25 is just because of you starting partway through the 24 budgeted year?
No, so part of that is in 2024, under that previous agreement we had with CSU, the contribution amount for the salary was lower, and granted because the salary was lower. So as we move forward and re-upped and then worked on hiring Diana and then updating we went from an IGA to an MOU with CSU is where you see that increase in the contribution.
And one thing that did change with CSU is that extension professionals became faculty members. And I do have rather a lot of, I'm considered a master instructor, so I am an experienced employee, which is why I cost more, unfortunately.
We also didn't have a CSU extension director for the whole year, so we wouldn't have paid for the whole year, right?
For 24,
Yeah.
no, that part of it, yes, but that was, I think the original, that 17K was the original budgeted amount.
Not actuals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
What did we change from with the partnership contribution ratios? Or 20,
The ratio is still the same, it is
Okay.
just with CSU making the change for like Diana being
Faculty.
considered faculty.
Okay.
And then the CSU pays folks more, which is a good
Okay.
thing.
Alright.
I would argue, yes,
I think so.
Yes, yeah.
I'm biased.
right.
Any other questions with budget? Okay, so pretty much kind of department goals, very much as I was saying, that the first little bit that I need to do is working on building awareness, working conducting both formal and informal needs assessments to find out what people are interested in here. And that's kind of gonna take my priority over the next probably 2 months, and then really building awareness, both through an online presence and then also just making sure that my face is out there in the community, then people know that I'm here, and that they have my contact information and that they can reach out to me. And then long term, I just wanna make sure we have a thriving extension program that's promoting lifelong learning and then providing the resources that are wanted in this community. I think this community needs to shape what we are interested in and what I actually end up doing. Which is why this feels like it's an odd spot to be in right now, where I'm like, I don't actually know what I do yet, because I want people to tell me what they want me to do before I move forward and start doing it.
Yeah, is there like, we pay for a lot of studies and a lot of, feasibility studies, assessment, all kinds of, is there ways for you to identify places where we could have help from CSU on some of these things that would maybe replace the need for us to be paying crazy amounts of money to outside sources for
Ideally.
information that people within the CSU organization are teaching students or, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah, so I think part of it is tapping into what needs assessments have already been done, and so if I can read those and read into that. We also have, as part of our region, we have regional specialists who kind of specialize in different areas. So I was actually meeting yesterday with one of the CSU regional specialists, Willie Wilkinson, that's kind of what he does. And he's trying to make sure that there's conversations between different organizations and that people are not recreating the wheel in all of those areas. So he is one person I am planning to lean on to kind of lead that direction.
Okay.
So pretty much from this moment, I'm kind of pushing it back on you guys, and I wanted to say, what do you want to see? Are there gaps in programming that you would like to see CSU Extension fill? I've heard you have questions, and I'm happy to hit the hot seat.
It's stirring with a very big knife.
We were making cheese actually, so they were cutting curds. And that's technically is a picture from Jefferson County, but I figured it'd be more fun to show something that I'm hoping to be doing in the next couple months rather than just a headshot of me.
What other input have you gotten from other community members?
So far, what I've heard about is I've heard a lot of people are very interested in the high alpine gardening. This is an area that a lot of groups are working on. So that's an area of collaboration that I can work either with the Cloud City Farm or the Conservation District. Noxious weeds is something that somebody has mentioned where there's may not be as much of a capacity. And that the noxious weeds manager might be down in Salida and that they don't have as much time to come up here. So that was something that was mentioned to me. One other area that I'm looking at, and this is more me thinking about funding specifically, is that I know up at CSU in the 4-H office, they have funding available for healthy living youth programming, and whether that's outdoor education, healthy living, or kind of however spin you put on that. So that was an area I was hoping to kind of jump into just because I know they have dollars to spend, and that would be an area to easily quickly increase that budget. Fire mitigation and then home preparedness is another area. And then one thing I've talked about with the library already is that they'd love to have a natural resources kind of series for youth over the summertime. So that's possibly one of the first programs that we'll do. So that's what I've heard so far. Partially, I started in the middle of December and then I had a death in the family and so I had to go out of state for about 3 weeks. So I feel like I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball in that this is now my 4th week actually here doing this work. So I have a lot more meetings set up for the rest of this week and next week. But that's where I've started.
Cool.
And I'd love your input.
Well, let us know how we can help. I'm not sure that I have any specific requests, but come to the meetings, set up work sessions, and we'll do what we can.
Absolutely.
to help you.
I love the noxious weeds idea. I feel like I spend so much of my days pulling up weeds.
Okay.
And I already said, but candy making, just as a personal thing,
Yep.
can't figure it out.
Candy?
Yeah, the
Okay.
temperatures
Okay.
at this
Break
altitude.
points.
At this altitude.
I thought you said specifically candy cane, I was like, what is very
Candy-
specific?
candy canes.
Rock cake.
Teach me how to
One
make
more
candy canes.
Could be fun.
Yeah, candy making.
Mhm.
Very excited about you.
I'm excited to be here. So I'm excited to come back in a couple months or a year and then tell you what I have done and actually feel like I have more of a presentation rather than just asking you what.
Well, and hopefully
What
we'll
I
be at your
hope for.
classes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, and again, it's like if I'm not a specific expert in an area, the good news is that CSU's reach is so wide that I can pull in other experts.
Mm-hmm.
And I already have, my mentor is the one in Gilpin County, and so she's been happy, so she's happy to come over and teach workshops or do whatever. So we definitely have a jumping off point. Yeah, and then our final thing is kind of our organizational chart, and here, as I said, I'm kind of guided by 2 different organizations, the county government here, and then also CSU Extension. And then hopefully we will have our 4-H volunteers and other natural resources volunteers soon in the future.
Nice.
And I will be meeting with because we do have a 4-H club here already, And so I'm gonna have coffee with them next week and then go to their meeting on the 9th.
Is that Anita?
Anita
Yeah.
and then Hillary.
And Hillary,
Okay.
Mhm.
Hillary Homer, who is also, has spent a lot of time in Alaska.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah, I
fun.
think she lived there for like 15 years.
Nice, I'm noticing there's a very large connection between Leadville and Alaska,
Halfway house.
which makes sense,
Yeah.
so. Alright, well, thank you.
Alright, any
Thank you
other
so
questions for
much.
Diana?
Thank you, Diana.
So I promise to be
Diana,
quick, I
sorry.
promise.
That was
You're welcome.
quick.
Thank you.
Well, Diane will come back, soon with, after you hear some more community feedback and then
Mhm.
get more direct feedback from the board, what you guys do.
Yeah, but yeah, think about it, let me know if anything, mull it over and I'm all ears.
Great,
So-
thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Chief, welcome.
Alright, thank you for your patience.
Oh, absolutely. You know that it's getting to midday here, lunch, and the sponge is probably full already. You know, a lot to learn here.
Always more room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always growing.
Is
Do you practice your ABCs like Pat?
airway breathing circulation.
Yeah,
Oh,
seriously.
that's you, okay, alright.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. I'm gonna try to make this as short as possible.
And I told you that, sorry, Commissioner Bullock is your FMB rep, so I
Right.
imagine all three will be coming for a while.
Okay, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of layers of this organization.
Wherever,
Being that we're both city and county, and I just wanna be able to make sure and catch you up on, I'll highlight some things this afternoon, but for the most part, I'd really like to be able to actually dive into some of the weeds with you as well, because it's taken a very long time to get where we're at as an organization, and I think that's the more informative part is, where were we and where are we at now? And kind of give you a clearer path of the kind of services that we provide today versus in the past, so. I'll go through, just a few things here. First off, I'd like to say welcome, and, it's awesome that you're taking on this endeavor for public service, and, I know the community members will appreciate it, so thank you very much. Here is, our mission. Our mission is reducing community risk through excellence in emergency services. And we do that by emergency response, be mission ready at all costs, our apparatus and everything that needs to be in service. We want that tip top, of course. Our training is probably the most important, so that we can get out and take care of human life. And we do that through a series of training programs that I'll get into here in a little bit. We stay fit, not only just physically, but through our mental shape, and then we have a bunch of programs within the organization, which I call the oil in the machines, that keep everything running. So that's like our wildland program, our resident reserve program, et cetera, our apparatus program, all of that. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. Of course, we have vision. We don't deviate from this. Neither are values. I'm not gonna go through all these. I will give you these, and Matt, of course, you'll get these and you'll see these when I update my strategic plan. And of course, I'll get it out to the other commissioners, but these will be a part of that packet there. And obviously it'll be provided for you before then. We have ethics, dignity statement, our core ideology, our core purpose, that's lives and protect property. And here, this is where I'll go over some of the stuff that I presented to the management board, the former county commissioners and city council. Some of our short-term objectives, what I'd like to be able to accomplish is we need an additional tactical tender or type 3 in our fleet. That is for our wildland fire response capabilities. The last 2 years, we've had an opportunity to be able to add a lot of pieces of equipment to our operational response. That was a type 1, a type 3, and a type 6. The type 3 and the type 6 are for wildland response. The type 1 is the one that you normally see going around town that takes care of all hazard emergencies. We're able to do that, of course, by some of the funding that the fire department brings in, but also through the general funds of both the city and the county. And we've been able to really kind of play the catch-up game in a lot of our really needed capital improvements. And that was working with the management board and the other county commissioners and whatnot, so that was a good thing. We have caught up to a certain degree, and now this is gonna be addition to that for greater response capabilities and also wildland deployment, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. We have decided to replace the command vehicles, Command 1 and Command 2. That's my vehicle and my operations chief vehicle, and we're gonna go under an enterprise management system, just like what the county does. That'll be through the city. And then we'll transfer Command 2 to the training division, under one of our part-time captains, that works for CMC as well. One of the things that we did was, retention of salaries this last budgetary session, which was, wonderful to do. We looked at, salaries, and we were trying to continue to work on that. As we know, everywhere, I think in Lake County, we're trying to work on those salary increases for retention purposes. And, we did a pretty good job and have done a great job, actually, I think over the past few years, to try to get people's salaries to a livable wage so that they stay with the organization, because we've invested so much. I need to update our standard operating procedures. We're almost there. So our policies are good. Now we're gonna go into the procedural side, and we're gonna update those in 2025. We need a solar grant, to put some solar on Station 2. The utility costs of that are pretty extreme right now, and I think that working towards that kind of project, a short-term goal, will be very beneficial for that station that's down there to cut some of those utility costs. We want to build a storage area down at Station 2 with the containers and roof. The bays themselves is a multi-use. It has search and rescue, public works, and ambulance when they are available to work down at that station, and then fire in the bay section. Well, some of the stuff doesn't need to be climate controlled, so we can use 2 shipping containers or the roof line, et cetera, to be able to move forward with that project, and hopefully that'll happen this year. In fact, I've already looked into a company that will move forward with being able to build that structure down there. We have a tremendous amount of donation funds from the Friends of Twin Lakes and the campaign that they did for the Station 2 project, and also just being able to collect funding to fixtures and furnitures within the structure itself, but also some other additives, et cetera, that we needed for the station. So what we're gonna do with the remaining, or some of the remaining funds from those donations, is we're gonna purchase a UTV, which will have a pump and a tank on the back side of it. We already purchased the trailer, and this will give us greater response capabilities in those fires that are gonna be a little bit more, that aren't very reachable sometimes with the Type 6 engine, and also possibly try to get some of those unattended campfires out working with the Forest Service. So I think it's gonna be a great asset to us, and that's gonna be paid for through the donations that we receive from Friends of Twin Lakes and our community members, so that's wonderful. Sauna for Station 2, that'll be for medical purposes, and we are going to also update our mutual aid agreements this year with all of our surrounding counties. And then, as I mentioned, the strategic plan, and then infrastructure for the build out of HTC. Okay, so HTC is our Headwaters Training Center that we took on this concept probably around 2015, and over a period of time, the last 3 years, it was built out. It was built out of 19 shipping containers. Those shipping containers, we just built them out in the interior, just like you would a home, right? There's stairwells, kitchens, etc. And that's off of County Road 11A, as you're going out towards Half Moon campground sites, out there on the right-hand side. So from building the training center, we built the training center because we've been putting on fire academies since 2003. And this is getting back to that training concept that I was talking about, how important it is. Then we went into an agreement with the college, in an intergovernment agreement, to be able to continue with fire academies through the college. HTC takes care of the training grounds for those people. Then we went for a grant, a SAFER grant, Staffing Adequate Fire Emergency Response, initially, to support a resident reserve program. They paid for everything for 4 years, up to an associate's degree in fire science technology, technical training, a meal stipend while they're on shift, a stipend while they're on shift, and housing at the time. Station 2 became a part of this big plan because now it provides the housing for the residency program. And I'll kind of circle back to try to make all of this make sense. So we built the training center, we went into an agreement with the college, we built a facility. So now what that does is it basically opens the door for an educational purpose for somebody either here locally, or now currently we're bringing people in nationwide to get an education, and we provide them a professional career path for the fire service. And it's been really successful. On the SAFER grant itself, for the first 4 years, we were spending roughly about $128,000 in that grant. No, I'm sorry, $198,000 in that grant, for a total of like $773,000 for the first 4 years. Then we just decided to continue with that program, but then went for the hire on the SAFER grant to hire our third person on our engine company with the second SAFER grant that we got. That hired 3 additional personnel on our engine company at $595,000 for 3 years salary and benefits paid for. So we just kind of shifted our residency program. We continue to fund that. We fund it currently right now out of our fire fund balance and also out of the operational budget. And that's, out of the operational budget, it's roughly about $42,000 instead of the $198,000 what we were paying for. But we also supplement that with $20,000 out of the fire fund, and I'll get to the fire fund here in a minute. So what we did is we built this program because a long time ago, it was noticed that, we're a training ground. We were a training ground for our personnel. We train them up, they'd go somewhere else. We train them up, we'd go somewhere else. So this concept, what it does, and now it's in fruition, is we train them, and then if we lose somebody, they're already trained to our standards, all of our systems that we have in place, like first year objectives, right? It takes normally about a year in order for them to be able to give us any kind of service to our community members. It takes them about 2 years, of course, to get their associate's degree and other technical training, etc. Well, in about that time, if we can't retain them, then they go somewhere else, and we place people everywhere, North Carolina, Florida, Front Range, a few. And then so they leave, and then we just plug these other people right into our system, and they're already trained.
Nice.
So we're giving them a career path in the fire service. So this program has been very exceptional. It's a lot of work, of course, for the engine company, but it is proven to be, like I said, very successful. And we want to continue, of course, with that. And so let me see if I got everything here. The training facility, CMC. With CMC, what they do is we're in an intergovernmental agreement with them for $27,500 a year. What that does is it takes care of $10,000 to put into the training facility continuously to build it out. $6,000 for consumables that we use out there, building materials, straw, et cetera, that we burn, all of that kind of stuff. And then 11,000, so that's 27,000 to pay for our part-time captain, who is Brandon Drury, on our organization. So we supplement. He is in charge of the fire science program. The college pays him, but then they pay us for us to pay him that additional 6,000. And there's a little bit more of a supplement in the actual operational budget to pay him as well, to be able to support this program continuously. So, so that's our agreement with the college. That's kind of the program in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it. So of course that supplements our staffing, which can cut overtime. It fills in different shifts. You know, there's a whole plethora that goes along with all of that. We give greater services to our community members with having more personnel. So let's see, and then
And it saves money,
what's that?
and it saves money.
Oh,
To
yeah.
not be salarying these folks for the first 2 years during their like training time. We're saving a huge amount of money by not having the constant turnover.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as they're going through this training program,
Yeah.
we're paying minimal for getting maximum
Right.
benefit out of it,
Right.
correct.
You're shifting the pipeline downstream a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat, Dan.
So the other IGA that we have is with the ambulance, and this is just for response capabilities and also some shared costs for supplies and also for them to respond out of Station 2 if and when they are available. They have not taken advantage of that quite yet. I'm hoping in 2025 during the summertime that we will have greater response capabilities down at Station 2 with an ambulance. How we're moving forward with that and what we've worked on for the past 2 years is that we hired an engineer in 24 and for 10 days a month, because our schedule's 48.96, so they work 10 days a month, 10 24-hour shifts a month. And when he's available or we don't have somebody, you know, if somebody doesn't leave that shift, then we have coverage down there for 10 days a month for greater response capabilities. And it's a whole lot better to get on, say, a heart attack, and currently right now it's Pete Holmstrom and he's a paramedic. So it's a whole lot better for somebody to be down there and get to somebody within that area 15 minutes sooner, like during a heart attack or a car accident or something like that in their time of need. So, and then we just hired one for 2025, and then hopefully we'll do another one in 2026, and then that will kind of give us that full coverage for now, until our growth gets to a point where we need to reassess that. So, excuse me. So the programs, I wanna talk about programs a little bit because you heard me mention about the fire fund balance. We do contract work outside of our organization. We send out, like we just got back yesterday from the Palisade Fire on our Type 3 engine. And I'm just gonna give you this example. Now, it's not, in my professional opinion, it's not the money that matters. It's a perk, yes, okay, yeah, they're utilizing our apparatus, you know, we get a contract rate for that. The bigger thing for me is that these personnel, the firefighters themselves, get the experience that they need out there in order to be able to, so like when we have an interlocking fire, they know what to do. They see it firsthand in a way large scale incident, and we just signed off one of our other firefighters to become an engine boss on this last fire, going through task books and training, etc. It takes about 3 to 5 years to become an engine boss. So we just signed somebody off for being able to go out there and get that kind of experience. And now we even have greater capabilities here by being able to do those types of fires. The benefit of the revenue aspect of it is that the Type 6 engine that we just purchased was $314,000. Well, that was just paid for out of the fire fund balance. That wasn't paid for by city or kind of, you know, taxpayers, right? So, other than the use of the vehicle, and you know, there's always that argument, there's a little maintenance, etc., that you have to pay for. But I mean, that huge overall cost wasn't taxpayers' dollars. So that is a benefit. We also do flight standby at the airport where we go into contract with them as well because they do high altitude testing on helicopters here. And I'm telling you, they're trying to break those things up at this airport. I'm not kidding you. They do some crazy stuff. But we're on standby for that, and there's some companies it's required. So we bring in revenue also to be able to put in this fund to try to put towards capital improvements. There's 3 things within the intergovernment agreement that can be utilized for the fire fund balance. It's to support the wildland program. That's 20%, 10% for training, and 70% for capital. So that's how it's broken down in the intergovernment agreement, which we are currently going through right now. Matt, we will start going through this, and this is kind of some of the changes that are happening within that intergovernment agreement. So just to give you an idea, it kind of lays out, what kind of stuff needs to happen between the city and county agreement, of course, for fire protection. I want to talk to you about the funding aspect, but I would prefer to do that probably individually. That's fine. I don't want to take up too much time on that, but so that's the fire fund balance, the wildland program. We're back right now. We'll get a service on that rig. We'll put it back on availability. It'll probably go back to California. Just to give you an idea, they're getting paid porthole to porthole right now, which means that from the time that they leave is 24 hours for 14 days to include the travel days.
Mm-hmm.
The rig itself will make probably 54,000. And then we're getting ready to go back out porthole to porthole, so it's gonna be about 110,000 if we get redeployed. You can see how beneficial that could be for capital replacement. Normally, it's not that, because it's normally 12 to 14 hours, but just to give you an idea.
Dan, why don't you just leave the engine out there and have it fixed or maintained out there?
They have services that comes out within the, depending on what level of team it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll just order everything to be able to take care of everything.
So did I not understand it? I thought that the engine came back, not
They
just the crew.
They did,
Okay.
yeah, they came
And if
back.
we're gonna go back out again, why spend all the time and gas
Right.
driving is my question.
Yes, so this was a unique situation because of the porthole.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally normally what we would do is we would just fly a new crew in
Right,
and fly a crew out,
right,
yeah,
okay,
and the rig would stay,
okay.
yeah. That's most things,
Yeah.
so. Let's see here. So create a program for mitigation team and seasonal wildland firefighters by 2026. The majority of these long-term objectives right here has to do with mitigation. I don't know if you've heard, but we burned piles for the first time in our history. I will tell you this right now, we are not a mitigation team. We don't do that, we're a response agency.
Mhm.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to work with, the Forest Service and RWIC and, the other agencies to see where we can kind of fit in and be able to assist in these efforts in Lake County. Outreach is a good one. We can work on the WUI code. I'm looking forward to that, seeing
Yeah.
what that brings. We worked with RWIC to burn the 50 piles on the other side of the community field. We're gonna go for a permit to try to burn the rest of the piles. So this right here, the long-term objectives is setting up seasonal firefighters that are already within our wildland program. That will probably take some seed money, but then have them as contractors basically for our agency. Now it's twofold. They can be here locally in jurisdiction doing wildland efforts while they're not on deployment. And then the other side of that is they go up single resource under our agency and then they go out on deployment. They can either go with us or they can go out individually and deploy nationally. But if we build this contract staffing model, which is out there, then we will have better benefits to us to work on those mitigation, outreach, maybe a chipping program, you know, those types of things. But that is, you know, it's, right now, I think we're crawling. It's kind of in its infant stages where we want to be. Now, Lake County wide, we're walking if not running. You know, like those other agencies doing mitigation projects like what Pat was talking about. There is a lot of phenomenal things going on right now in Lake County because of the funding that we received and the mitigation efforts that have been done and the following of the CDWPP. So we're gonna work towards that. That's one of our bigger goals. And like I said, that'll take time and it'll take money and it'll take staffing.
Why will it take money? Is it the training? Is it the like administrative cost of setting up a contracting program? Where is the money going?
Yeah, so it's a few things. Number 3, hire a wildland fire specialist to have constant and future attention in becoming a fire-wise community.
Okay.
So the other agencies have their point of contact, right? We don't have somebody as a point of contact within Lake County.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, Harmony Jump she's facilitating Lake County Health Force Council. But that's just facilitating all of the agencies coming together. We don't have somebody here locally to work directly with the Forest Service or going for like a county grant that's needed and then managing that grant.
And then managing
Or
the contractors.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Collectively getting everybody together and working towards that end CWPP goal.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, that's futuristic. It would be great to have somebody that's sworn in for that so that they also have dual response capabilities, so it's like a line person within the fire agency. But if that doesn't work out, then, you know, we can obviously look at different pathways on how we feel that. Those were just the budget needs for 2024 and they were filled. That's the salaries. One of the things that we did do was salaries. So within the operational budget this last year, there was a cut in roughly about $245,000 in order to be able to offset the $255,000 as you see in the first year in 2025. That was the addition of keeping the 3 personnel that were on the SAFER grant, where all salaries and benefits were paid for 3 years. It ends this year in February. It ends next month. So during the budgetary process, I cut about $245,000 to try to offset this $255,000 to keep those 3 personnel. And then these were the deductions. The largest one that you see there, well, there's 2 large ones, and this is, Matt, this is what we'll need to talk about within the management board itself. The city and the county agreed to start setting funding aside up to $200,000 a year for that capital improvement. Just, you know, having a savings account. Well, we used $100,000 of it this last year to purchase a ladder truck from Greater Eagle. There was $100,000 left. Well, that was one of the reductions for 2025. So you can see where it's gonna need to be a conversation to be had again to how do we start setting that kind of funding aside and not just relying on the fire fund balance or having, you know, being reactionary, right? Where we have this huge expense coming up and then we have to be like, oh, well, we didn't prepare for that. So, but we decided to do that for this year to soften the impact and then have a conversation about it in 2025 for 26. The other one, 6209, you see is 72,865. We have 3 more payments of the Type 3 engine that sits in the operational budget. We decided to pay for that out of the fire fund balance. Now, I don't know if you've seen it, it's the big tactical tender that drives around, it's 3,000 gallon, that was 212,000. We paid for that entirely out of the fire fund as well, with the last payment of that was last year of 28.9. So we just decided to stick this in there in its place, because we had paid that off. So that was another creative way to try to reduce costs. And that's just reduction, that's the layout of all of it, it's hard to see, I apologize.
Dan,
That's the
is
salaries.
there a capital schedule for your equipment?
There is. I've provided one for many years.
Yeah.
And then now we have, we hired a consultant, his name's Brian Brown. And he came out in September. And he's finalizing his findings. So we'll have something fresh to start with
Okay.
this year for not only just apparatus, but equipment, like
Yeah.
self-contained breathing apparatus, all the larger types of expenses, and also facilities.
Great.
So, yeah, so that'll be coming out and you'll see that. I have the draft form, I worked with him on it yesterday to try to get his final numbers that he needed.
Great.
This is the fire fund. This is how we come up with it. You can just see down at the very bottom, as of 9/30/24, there's 345,000 in there. But we had spent, if you look at the capital assets, 4 up from the bottom, we spent 352,000, and like I was saying before, 314 of that was the Type 6 engine. This is county, those are the grants that I'm either managing or why we reduced some of the portions within the budget itself, because it was, we were able to supplement it with this right here.
Those federal,
2 of them are federal,
so they're frozen right now,
3 state. What's that?
so now they're frozen.
What's that?
They're frozen now,
Oh. I don't know.
as of today.
Oh, okay.
Executive order issued yesterday.
I didn't get that memo, but
Yeah.
I just did. That's right, I'm pretty sure I'm freeze.
Sorry, are all federal grants frozen right now?
Yes.
Is that what that is?
There's some confusion as in the language, since it's just a 2-page memo that covers about 1 million pages worth of things.
Yes.
So, and there's probably gonna be some legal challenges pretty much immediately, like yesterday. So no one really, our crystal ball's pretty fuzzy at this point.
Okay, I'll start paying attention to that, that's good information. Here's our current structure. You have me, then a part-time seasonal admin during the summer, cause things are crazy, full-time admin position was added this last year, deputy chief, fire marshal, and operations chief, 3 career captains, dang, that should say 4 career engineers, I apologize. Oh no, 5, I'm sorry, that's this year, yep. 6 career firefighters, 2 reserve firefighters, and 6 student resident firefighters.
Nice.
And this is personnel continued, really the only thing that's out of there is the wildlands fire specialist and additional engineer for Station 2. So this is our apparatus list, everything that you see in red is gone. And then all the black is what we currently have, or which is in the apparatus replacement. As you see over on the far right-hand side, there's replacement cost. The fire apparatus are not cheap. Type 1 engine goes for $1.2 million now. A ladder truck, like what we just got for $100,000, goes for 1.8 million.
I saw that in your last budget presentation, it was like,
Yeah.
what?
Wow.
Score.
Yeah, big time. Of course, we're going to be mindful about health and wellness. That's one of the programs I really wanted to talk to you about. We just started a peer support program this last year. And this is not just for our agency, it's for all emergency response. And we're continuously working on this. In fact, we just got a grant awarded from us this morning for $1,000 through Chaffey County to be able to support this program moving forward for either education or being able to put on classes down at Station 2 to work with that one, and I'll just say it real quick, that one is just, it's for it's called a first responders night. It's so that, first responders can be able to talk to their spouses and their loved ones about what we go through, and then we can also talk to each other about what we go through. And so this $1,000 will support that, that we just received. Here are our programs. I mean, those are basically, as I mentioned, the wildfire, we have a rescue program, that's all of our rope rescue equipment, et cetera. Hazmat, we just relinquished the hammer, which was our hazmat piece of equipment that we received in 2005 from the Homeland Security grant back to the South Central region because we didn't really utilize it. So we purchased a trailer in its stead so that we can still have hazmat response, and we'll be working with CSP to be able to get that outfitted here pretty soon. Fire protection, of course, fire prevention, that's all Chief Boyle's, that's, education out there, the code, all of that kind of stuff. Fire investigations, that's what he takes care of also during the fires. EMS, and community outreach, and then our service supports our communication, resident reserve program, the training, vehicle maintenance and water supply. And Greg gave some very good information today. Here's our wildland program, and I don't think I need to go through all of this, but Bo will give me, Bo Nickman, he's one of my captains on C shift. He'll kind of give me a budget of what he needs to support that program annually. And $326,000, but that's also with the type 1, a tactical contender or type 3 in there, so that's why you see that large number. Vehicle maintenance, I'll get into that with the management board, but just a real quick, what we need to do is we need to find an emergency vehicle technician here in town. Lance is great for us over at the county, but there's certain things that we can't do here in district, and we have to send it all the way to Frederick or Keystone to be able to do some of the repairs on our vehicles, and it drives me crazy. Veins pop out when I have to start talking about that kind of stuff. So we did have a good system set in place at one point when Dave Marcello was here. He got his training. We're starting to get down that path, but then he left. And I'm gonna talk to Lance, but also I have an opportunity to maybe hire an EVT in this next hiring process as well, coming from Chaffey County. And that might reduce not only just some of that cost, but the turnaround time and being able to stay in service for the community members instead of having to just take that vehicle out completely for days, weeks, months on end, going down to Frederick. Oh, drives me nuts. So that's the resident reserve program I talked about. And that's about it on that. I think that is pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in a broad overview. Do you have any questions?
Gigantic and extremely complex amount of moving pieces that you are overseeing.
Very much
So
so.
there's just no way to fit all the explanation and even the questions into this, so. Thanks for fitting all that into that much time, that was impressive. I do not have any questions at the moment. You guys.
Nor do I.
Okay.
Yeah, when's our next fire management board meeting?
It is, it's in February. Matt, can you email me
Yes.
so I can get your information to
Yeah.
Lori Ty? Lori Ty is our right hand, and she'll send you out that information. Oh, all three of you want to attend for a little while?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, okay, I'll well, that's
Well, I can send it out to Lori.
great, thank you. I'll do that now. It's the 21st.
Chief, I didn't know the county was out of certification for the EVT stuff.
Not out of certification, we just don't have an EVT.
I thought it did.
No,
I'm trying to think of the name, but.
no, Lance, he does basic maintenance for us.
But he can't do
Tires,
it all?
oil changes, right, he can't work pumps and brakes, and there's certain stuff by by National Fire Protection Association that we have to follow criteria on, it's a liability thing, so, yeah.
So that's when you could use the vehicle for a long period of time.
Correct, yeah, like the Pierce was just down there for almost a month. Yeah.
Would you,
Are you trying to make my van come out? You trying to-
you'd be so kind as to talk about fire hydrants in our community and who checks them and when they're checked? And whose responsibility they are?
Yes,
Thank you.
so, I'm gonna play the used to game. We used to take care of them, we used to, test them in 3 phases throughout the county. So it'd take 3 years to go through the whole cycle. In 2010, the chief at the time said, when he sat down with Greg, he said, hey, you know, these are your hydrants, I don't think that we should be messing with them, you know, especially if we break them, right? So they took on that responsibility again, and supposedly they are testing them like how we tested them in the past. Now, if you have a hydrant on your property and it snows, it's the homeowner's responsibility to clear that, it's not the water district's, which is kind of a weird situation, but,
Yeah, so we do.
and we appreciate that they are cleared, we really do. In time of use, so,
So Parkville,
yes,
checks them.
that's correct, that's my understanding,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Sweet, thanks.
And I look forward to meeting with every one of you, like coffee or something like that, to really kind of catch up, and,
Sounds good.
yeah, I really appreciate your time today,
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
thank you.
Alright,
Yes, thank you.
that is it for the AM session. Alright, it is 12:35 PM, January 28th, Tuesday. We're going to break for lunch
We're back at 1.
for just a few minutes
Yeah.
because we're,
Parks Rec Open Space and Bowl is at 1, starts at 1.
yep,